The recording is running.
Thanks so much, Lucian, and thank you everybody who's here. So my name is Justine Kucha, and I'm the chair of the Battery Park City Committee, which is what's meeting tonight. And I have my co-chair, Kathleen Gupta, who's on here. Committee members, Bob Schneck, Betty Kay, Jeff Galloway, Jeff Myhock. That's who, and Sarah Cassell, that's who I see that are online right now. I might have missed somebody, but that's who I see. And I welcome everybody here, and I'd like to introduce as our first agenda item, BJ Jones, who is president of the Battery Park City Authority, who is going to be here and present to us their financials along with Pam Fredericks, the CFO. Am I correct, Pam?
Correct.
Excellent. All right, so BJ, I toss this to you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a short but substantive presentation on the annual finances that I'm going to do a little framing, and then Pam will jump into the details, and then happy to hear your feedback. Just as a note before we get into this, you know, we have been spending a lot of time focusing our public meetings on the resiliency projects necessarily so, and recently and moving forward, we are going to, you know, be now turning our attention also to updating you and the public on other aspects of the authority. And so, in addition to resiliency, thank you for hosting us and enabling us to provide an update on parks operations recently. Today, we'll focus on the finances, and we will have some additional upcoming presentations on things like ground leases, other capital projects, and you know, we'll be spreading the word about what I'm looking forward to is the return of, you know, parks programming too. So stay tuned for more information on sessions regarding those subjects. So this presentation to many of you should seem somewhat familiar. We have been providing updates on our finances on an annual basis for a few years now. So we're following a similar format, but updating the numbers, of course. And with that, let's go to the next slide, please, Lucian. Okay, so here's just kind of context for what we're talking about in terms of the funding structure for the Battery Park City Authority and our relationship with the city. Just at the highest level, we collect pilot, or you know, as property taxes are calculated by the City Department of Finance, and also ground lease revenue, but the bulk of the revenue that we collect is pilot, and that flows through to the Battery Park City Authority, and we use that to fund our operations and debt service. And then after satisfying those obligations, the remaining revenues, which are often referred to as excess revenues, then flow per an agreement with the city that's been around for a while now to the City of New York. And those excess revenues, which again, Pam will go into detail about with regards to the 2020 numbers themselves, go into two buckets at the city. One is the general fund. Next slide, Lucian, please. And that's where the bulk of the revenues go for the city to fund operations that, you know, certainly, you know, serve Battery Park City as well as the rest of the city. And just here are some examples of that, whether it be NYPD or finance and, you know, environmental protection and what have you. And then the other piece, a smaller piece of the pie, goes to something called the Joint Purpose Fund. Justine, you could actually give this presentation if you wanted to.
I could. If you give me your slides, I could do this.
Right, she loves it. She loves it. It's so good.
And so let's go to the next slide, please, Lucian. Okay, and so you might, for those of you who have been attending these talks in the past, the slide on the left is an oldie but a goodie from one of our first presentations where we kind of introduced this subject. And so pursuant to a settlement agreement with the city, the bulk of the revenues, that can be, as much as 80%, just as an order of magnitude, go to the general fund, and then about 20% are earmarked for what's called the joint purpose fund. And that's basically an account where this set of revenues accrues until it has a dedicated source, which would be per an agreement with the city comptroller, the mayor, and the Battery Park City Authority. And so the most recent agreement that earmarked those funds was in 2010 or 11. So it's been 2010. A while. 2010. And that agreement earmarked $861 million, and in several buckets, but really primarily serving to fund affordable housing initiatives elsewhere in the city. And so, as Pam again will also talk a little bit more about the details of this, it has flowed through to several buckets in the joint purpose fund, and the last one, it's though the name doesn't really matter, the $261 million New York City Capital Fund, which has also gone to affordable housing. We're about to satisfy that obligation in the coming year, and so I know that's something that's been on folks' radar screen here. And so what happens in terms of process is that when we finish our fiscal year and that amount is, transferred to the city HDC for affordable housing projects, the remainder of those joint purpose fund revenues, in essence, kind of sit in that account until a new agreement is reached. And so just keep that in mind, the flow in of revenues that we collect, the bulk of which are the pilots set by the city, paying our expenses and debt service, and then the remainder again flowing to the city, mostly to the general fund and a portion to the joint purpose fund. And it's based on a formula that apportions the revenues based on how they come in. With that, I will turn it over to our CFO, Pam, who can put some finer detail on this and talk about the numbers. So take it away, Pam.
Great. Pam, before you start, I got a quick question.
Sure.
Number one, what were the four buckets? So we had New York Capital Fund, that's what's being filled now. Then there's an affordable housing one.
Yeah, that's right. And then the other two buckets were that I think initially $200 million went to the state.
Just for the state, okay.
And $200 million went to the city general fund.
On top of the New York City general fund. So there was another thing, yeah.
That's right. And back early in the agreement, because there had been some money that had accumulated in the fund at the time of the agreement, and then the rest, the $461 million, has been dedicated to affordable housing.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. And then wait, one more question.
Sure.
Have discussions begun? This, I'm not sure if it's for you, BJ, or for Pam, but for the 2010 amendment to the settle agreement is almost fulfilled. Have there been any discussions that have begun about the successor agreement?
There have not been, or at least not that we've been a party.
Aware.
Yeah, there has been. If you the city comptroller Scott Stringer has talked for several years and continues to do recently
Yes.
about potentially tapping into that to support NYCHA, for example. So, so that is certainly something that has been out there in the media, but there haven't been any
Formal discussions. All right. So,
And I would say, Justine, that both the other two parties, this New York State and New York City, are both aware that we're nearing the end of the conditions for the 2010. And we anticipate that we would have some of those discussions this year, or if not, it would accumulate until resolved.
Yeah.
so let me put on the record now that the community would like to be party to those discussions. And Lucian, I know Lucas Wolf is here from Scott Stringer's office. I didn't see who, and I know Cora's here, but I didn't see who else was on here. But I would love Lucas to be put into the participants panel.
You got it.
Just in case he's got some answers he can give us. I'm not going to put you on the spot, Lucas, but I might. But I'm not putting you on the spot this second. And Pam, take it away.
Sure. Next page, Lucian. Right. So I am going to, good evening, everyone. And thanks, BJ. I am going to just provide an overview of our fiscal year in 2020 results. And that will cover basically our revenues, our expenditures, what our capital outlook is, and what the debt and financing picture looks like. If we could turn to the next slide. So in terms of sublease revenues, I would say we're a good way to look at that is and to look at it two ways. One is by the type of revenues, and by that I mean the pilot, the ground rent, and then we have a small sliver of other revenues that are unrelated to the subleases, or at least aren't our core revenues, which is pilot and ground rent. And then the other way to look at how we view the revenues is by residential, commercial, and then again, an other section. Of the 338 million in sublease revenues, there was a nearly even split when you pair the residential with the commercial and other. And so we have a pretty nearly even split there in that. When you include the non-core revenues of about 5 million, the total authority revenues were 343 million. And pilot remains the majority of our receipts. They're about 81%, as you can see, followed by base rent, which is 14%. And the largest driver of changes in the revenue in 2020 was the increases or rise in property assessments, as well as some phase out of abatements under certain of the leases. And both of these, as you are pretty well aware, are determined by New York City, similar to what is found throughout Manhattan.
So Pam, just to interrupt you, because I'm really slow, but it helps if I understand it. So what you're saying right there, those changes all affected the pilot, which is why the pilot has increased, had nothing to do with the ground rent or this other segment, correct?
I would not phrase it that way.
Okay.
That might be a paraphrase, but I would say largely. And the reason I say large is the most significant increase or driver behind the increase. There's always, multiple things. And one of those things would be whatever the contractual revenues are under the lease. Some of them may change year to year, where they might have a percentage increase, or they may have a schedule of rents. And so, but those were not the largest drivers in 2020.
And when you say the lease, you mean the ground rent lease?
All the ground leases.
Got it. And one more question, what is the other 5%?
The other would be composed of things such as the percentage rent on primarily retail. It might be on garages, but those type of revenues are primarily what's in others. Sometimes there might be some other non-core revenue that we might receive, maybe a repayment of some prior year that was not anticipated in this year or associated with pilot or ground rent. But I would say the vast majority of that is retail revenue collection. And as one could imagine, given COVID in 2020, we did take a hit to that, as one would expect, because there's, retail was nearly non-existent, unfortunately.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Not at all, not at all. Okay, if we can turn to the next slide, please. So then in terms of actual expenditures, I'll also segment that a couple of ways. For our fiscal year 20, our core expenditures were allocated 31% to budgeted BPCA expenses. That was about 103 million. And then the remaining 69% is allocated towards transfers that will go to the New York City General Fund, as BJ described, and to New York City or New York State. In this case, they were allocated to New York City to fulfill that remaining portion of the 2010 agreement. And in 21, BJ noted, we will have a small portion that remains, and anything excess of that remainder, it's about 4 million, would flow into the joint purpose fund, and then that would be divided once that agreement is again made between the tri-parties. For fiscal year 20, the authority held about 230 million in total excess revenues from operations, and that will be transferred to New York City's general fund and to the joint purpose. Those funds will include 185 million of pilot that will go towards the city's general fund, and that's about 81% as reflected on the chart. And that 185 is of a total 273 million in total pilot that the authority received. BJ had mentioned that, first we would calculate the percentage that pilot represents of our total. And so that's the biggest driver in determining how that split occurs. So 185% would go towards the general fund, which it's primarily pilot, and then the other 45% would go towards meeting the obligations under that joint purpose agreement. It's our 2010 settlement agreement. And so it would go into our joint purpose fund. That generally will then flow on to New York City. And they have historically used that for affordable housing. Obviously, the authority does not have a say in how those funds are used, but it would go to the city for that purpose generally. All right, if we could turn, any questions? We can turn to the next slide, please. So the other thing we wanted to touch base, which is an important aspect of our operations, is our capital budget. We were approved for 62 million in spending in 2020. As you can imagine, the vast majority of that goes towards our resiliency, but we also have key projects like the community center. We've been remediating that. And the, for instance, the Esplanade, we are always upgrading the granite, repairing it and restoring it. So we've listed and highlighted the key projects, and one of the things that to make note is those key projects represent a pretty significant portion of the overall capital budget, but we do have other projects like in total, we have facilities and general infrastructure. For instance, we will allocate funds to that. In this budget, it's about 3 million for 2020. There's also the North Grid Electric Project, which is another large project. And then we have a smaller project, the South Cove Quay, which we will look to fund that project as well. And so the remainder is a sizable number of much smaller projects, but they're still important to the authority and overall operations. Both Gwen and BJ, I think over the course of the year, have provided progress updates on several of the key projects, principally resiliency. And we'll continue to do that over the course of the year. We can turn to the next slide. And, oh. Okay, little glitch there. Let's take a look at the funding structure and some of our plans, upcoming plans. So in terms of the overall debt, the authority has a fairly conservative financing structure with total outstanding bonds of par value of $905 million. We were pleased with some of the milestones that we achieved in our last bond offering that took place in 2019. It lowered our outstanding debt. It allowed us to issue our first sustainability bond, which was really important. As you can imagine, that was largely for resiliency and some of the other social and environmental projects that we have ongoing in Battery Park. Also, we were able to maintain our AAA credit rating, which is important in terms of the cost of debt. We restructured our swaps and we reduced the overall interest cost on our bond portfolio. Our next phase will be to continue the finance and capital plan with an emphasis on strengthening the resiliency of Battery Park City. We are early in the planning stages, but our objectives will be to minimize our debt costs, to retain a strong credit rating, and to maintain a very sound financing structure. So those are our overall objectives. If we could turn to the next slide, unless there's questions. So what we will look to do is first update our capital plan, and Gwen has of course, been working on that very diligently with BJ, and that will reflect some of the detailed planning and design work that the team has been working on over the course of the last couple of years since the last financing. Once we have that, a financing plan will be developed to meet those capital requirements, and then we will launch the financing plan with an expected return to the capital markets in the next 9 to 12 months. And that is pretty much it. We just wanted to thank you, and I will hand it back to, I guess, Justine to moderate any questions and answers.
Yeah, and just before you jump in, Justine, I did want to, one note I failed to mention in my intro too, to keep in mind, is that the city also, per this agreement that we're under, must approve our capital plan. And so that's why, Pam is talking about, this process to prepare our next request. But yeah, we're happy we'd like to the extent possible, keep the questions focused on this, financing presentation, but of course, happy to hear from everybody on what's on their mind. Just note that we may, for some of those questions and comments, use them to inform, one of our upcoming meetings and what we address in those upcoming meetings. So just something to keep in mind. But the floor's yours, Justine.
Thanks so much, Jay, and thanks so much, Pam. This was really helpful and informative as always. I really appreciate it. I so would love to have access to the slides because I love them, but they help me.
And we will post this, and also just keep in mind too that this also, in addition to seeing this format at community meetings, this also is aligned with our annual budget presentation to the board at the end of our fiscal year. So that information is available on our website, but Nick can also make sure you get, the direct link or.
Yeah, no, that would be great, and I appreciate it.
I'll get him over to you, Justine.
Justine,
Thank you.
I just want to jump in really quick.
Tell me what you're going to say. Tell people to raise their hands. Yeah,
yes,
go ahead.
yes. Everyone, please raise your hands. This is the easiest way, and it's the most fair to everyone to hear your question, where the question's coming from, and we'll make sure that Justine is, she is really, really, really good at recognizing members of the Battery Park City community, because that's really what this committee is for
Yeah, so please chime in as you can. And I think I saw briefly pop up in the chat. Whatever you write in the chat, only Lucian sees it. So if you want to use it as making notes, but so you remember your questions, great, but you need to speak it. So that's step one. I see Bob Schnecker. And Bob, before I call on you, I just have a question, which is BJ and Pam, when are we going to have these meetings you're talking about, which is great. We need to have a talk about the ground leases and affordability for condominium owners. And I would really like to have that happen before June.
Yeah, I think for that discussion, I think that's possible to have it in June or before. We'll certainly tee that up. And the idea is to have just a regular kind of pace of updates. Some we'll continue to do in this forum. Some we may, host our own meetings as well, like we in the past to have. The idea that I want to try out, this year is more meetings, but on focused topics. I think that's been really helpful with resiliency. And so that's why, we're going to try to take that approach also, because we do have a lot to talk about now, especially like knock on wood, if we're, indeed turning a corner here. There's a lot of projects underway and a lot of other things that we want to communicate to you. So
yeah, that makes sense. And I would like to have those things. And I guess what I would like to throw out as ideas would be a specific meeting, whether it's within the, this meeting, Community Board 1, Battery Park City Committee, or your own separate meeting, or a combination of both. Something that talks with the Homeowners Coalition and the Battery Alliance about ground rent and where we are with that. Another thing that I'd want to talk about is going to be, oh gosh, I'm having like a brain thing. I can't remember. It'll come to me, but the ground rent is a huge thing right there. And I'm going to call on Bob Schneck, then Tammy. So Bob, you're up. Well, I think about what the heck I was going to say.
Okay.
Hi, Bob.
Hello. So this morning in the broadsheet, there was an article by Matt Fenton called "How Much Is Too Much," and that was written as a kind of guide about this discussion and went over some of the issues. But I've been very concerned for quite some time about how financing works in Battery Park City, and I'm kind of barely holding on to my property in Liberty Court. And so I'm really interested in how it works. Once upon a time, BJ, you mentioned that I was very concerned about increasing the debt of Battery Park City. And I was very concerned that the actual unit holders was going to have to pick that up. And you said that no, they wouldn't. And I forget how that works. How is it that when Battery Park City increases its debt, it's above the heads of unit holders that live here?
Yeah, that's a good question and worth revisiting. I guess the easiest way to try to explain that is to think of the pie chart breakdown that Pam showed earlier on the breakdown of expenses, or my first opening slide about the excess revenues that go to the city. And what you see when you look at the numbers is that the authority has capacity based on the revenues that flow in through the authority to expand our capital budget to take on additional projects, like the resiliency construction, for example, that is based on the revenues that already are committed to the authority, the pilot that's set by the city, and also the existing ground lease agreements.
So BJ, what you're saying, because I have to put it in basic terms, I know you'll tell me it's not
Yeah.
Exactly right. But basically, the bottom line is because you're collecting $333 million, there's more money in here because you don't have to give, you can push more money towards operations in terms of the debt service, and you don't have to give so much to the city. Is that really kind of the way to balance?
Exactly. That if we, for example, and then Pam, I'll let you jump in too, but that's exactly right. That if our capital budget, our debt service increases, for example, because we're taking on additional debt and funding additional projects, that's more money that would stay with the authority, and that would, for lack of a better word, eat into the excess revenues that flow to the city. Anything, Pam, that you would?
Yeah, and I definitely that is correct. So I would look at it and maybe even think about it slightly different. The authority's obligations are paid out of the revenues that we receive prior to any determination of what goes to the city. So that if our debt increases or our debt service increases, or if it declines, that's what moves how much then goes to the city. And as an example, in our 2020 budget, we expected to pay 72 million, but because interest rates went down, our actual debt service was closer to 59 million. And that is one of the things that would allow us to have higher excess payments that would flow to the city. But let's say, but we had the money available should our debt increase. Obviously, as I noted, our objective is to be to have strong fiscal management. So we're not going to go willy-nilly, but that's part of the control that the city has. They also want us to manage, like you, how much debt we incur, because it does have a direct impact on what they receive.
That makes sense. And so now, Luke, I'm going to ask you to if you can pipe in, or at least bring this back to Scott Stringer, the controller, because it's an important question. So with that said, if and you also said earlier that any debt servicing that you do and any kind of capital budget has to be approved by all the parties, which would include the controller and include the mayor, as well as the governor and you guys. It's a three-party thing. Everybody's going to agree, so you're not willy-nilly making budget items and increasing your operating expenses. It's an agreement. But part of the deal here is the city is relying on us to pay and give them surplus. And what I've understood, and I am very clearly not understanding the pilot or any kind of the real estate taxes exactly right. But at the end of the day, if the city decides they need more money, they can just increase the pilot, which then will cover your ground rent increase. So if your capital budget goes from 62 to 100, but the city still wants its $230 million, they just increase it by whatever that math is that I just did, and it comes out of the pilot. And so you are correct. It's not your budget that's not doing anything particularly to cost us more money, but in the big picture, it is. So
no,
what am I missing?
Let me dispel something. In terms of pilot, the methodology for determining the assessment and tax rate, the methodology is the same for Battery Park as it is for
I know.
any other. We don't have special rates that then say, oh, well, you know what, we need some extra money and we can get it from Battery Park, so let's increase their tax rate or let's increase their assessment. It's the same as the rest of the city.
The way that they finesse it seems to be as their assessment value. So yes, you're correct. There, I think for class 2 homes, it's a 45% tax. Am I right with that 45% tax rate on class 2 homes, which was the whole of Manhattan? But okay, we're talking about ground rent. Let's not go there because I don't really want to say it right. But my concern is that if this, it wouldn't just be Battery Park City that they're looking for money from, but they could look at the big picture and say, we need money, so this is one way to get it. So I guess, I don't know, Luke, if you want to pipe in or at least give me some idea of where the comptroller would be willing to come forward and speak in the future. Because I know you can't speak for him now, but I would love to have a full-blown discussion. And that's what I was going to say, was the next meeting I would love to have would be about the settlement agreement and about how that's done. And just getting an understanding of how we put this together and how we can address it in such a way that it addresses affordability. But go ahead, Luke, if you have something to say, great. If you don't, I know I'm putting you on the spot, so.
All good. No problem being put on the spot here. I think I don't have all the answers today, but would be happy to help answer any questions that you and the community board have, and the rest of the Battery Park City community. I know that all of these topics are very important and very top of mind right now. So would be happy to follow up with you and answer any questions, and whether it's a presentation from our office or whatever it might be, make sure that we're providing the answers about the settlement agreement and other topics of interest.
That would be great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. And, you know,
Justine,
I would also say too, that also just think about it this way too, is that with the city approvals, the projects were undergoing, you know, the city approves it because presumably, you know, but for the Battery Park City Authority, they would do these projects themselves. And so it will flow, it will come back from the one way or the other. You know, it's in kind of our pass-through status. There's a lot that we can control that's, you know, focused on this neighborhood, but there's also, you know, like with resiliency, that's priority for the city, and so they're very much interested in, you know, these initiatives too.
And the Battery Park City Authority gets strong marks for being head and shoulders beyond the rest of the city in terms of providing for resiliency and moving the ball down the court with resiliency. So you are a good steward of those funds, and you're really helping. So that's a good thing. All right,
Yeah.
Bob, you want to finish up, and then Tammy?
yeah, I
Go
just
ahead.
have two major questions. The first one
Yeah.
I really want to express is like a deep concern I've held for some time. From my point of view, year 2069 is year zero, because that's when all that I have to do with Battery Park City comes apart.
Yeah.
And so reading Matthew's article today, one issue that's obvious, it's the use of two words that I haven't actually seen this openly used before. One is the word bankruptcy as regards resets. And the other one is the use of the word confiscation when it comes to the expiration of the ground lease. So in terms of the resets are going up and up and up and up. And the way the article's written, if you kind of take that to its logical end, no business can survive those.
Right.
They were unrealistic from the get-go.
Yeah.
And then no one's really taken an axe to them in a way that fundamentally stops it. So if I were to sell my apartment today, I would have to admit to the person looking at that, if you're going to hold on to that 30 years and be inside closer and closer to 69, then that could really make some trouble for them, especially if they want to give the apartment to their kids. So A is those resets. How are we going to handle resets in a way that the word bankruptcy never could be used with regards to them? And how can we handle the end of the ground lease in 2069 in the way that after I've invested 30 or 40 or 50 years of paying pilots here, then at the end of all that, having met my commitments for all that time, I end up with this massive liability of the loss of my apartment. I never have understood that was possible, but now I see that it is possible.
Yeah, I would.
So what do we do?
Yeah. Well, I would say that the article in the broadsheet this morning, you know, that angle is certainly the worst case scenario. So, you know, if this issue went unaddressed until 2069, and the authority of the future decided to exercise every fair market value reset as currently structured in the lease, it would be untenable. And in 2069, if the authority decided to not, do anything about that and, take kind of repossession of the condos, that would be terrible. And as I've said, I came into this role in the last few years and developed an appreciation for this serious issue, is that we plan to address it, and it's not easy to address, but that's why we're engaged with the condo coalition, for example, and talking to buildings that have imminent resets. I think we at the authority agree with people that are concerned about the fair market value reset, formula, that it's untenable, and we do want to address it. And so that's what we are trying to figure out now. I think the 2069 issue, even though it, 2069 for some, feels far off, we also recognize that it's not that far off, and that, the authority shouldn't kick that can down the road longer than it needs to. And so, we believe that there is a path forward to address that and potentially extend the ground lease that would require involvement with the city as well. I have no doubt, because they have a vested interest in the outcome of those agreements, but it is something that we're continuing to work on. And I agree. It needs those fair market value resets, need to be addressed, but addressed while also, frankly, recognizing the authority's own fiduciary, responsibility too. So, working on
I
it.
just wanted to say that I have conversations with bank managers of say, major bank branches.
Mhm.
I have relationship with realtors
Yep.
in Battery Park City and the city of New York, and they express concern about these things,
Yeah.
even though they're far out in the future.
Yeah.
It isn't that their audit departments don't know that these things are happening.
Right.
And so they express, this is a problem, might not be now, but we're going to start reflecting it, and whether or not we give you the loan that you want.
Yeah, and Bob, you raised a really good point,
that's
because it's
fair.
like we're in 30 years of a 30-year mortgage. So, and so that's it's a big concern. But thank you for sharing that, Bob.
Thank
And then
you.
let's go to
And I
Tammy, 'cause
just
got
have-
some other people. Well, I'm going to come
Okay.
back to you. Let's let other people talk, but then I'll call back to you. So put your hand down, and
Thank
then
you so
Tammy will
much.
talk, and then we'll come back. Go ahead, Tammy, and then we'll go to then we'll do Pat Smith, and then I'm going to say your name terribly wrong, Svetla and Maranova, but we'll go from there.
Okay.
Tammy, you're up. Sorry.
Hi, Tammy.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yes, yes.
You may be on mute. Hi, Tammy.
See you, but we don't hear you. No.
Is that
No.
better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks so much. It's nice to see you both.
We'll do
I
it
have a
in person
question.
at this pace.
Yeah. I got my vaccine, so I'm all ready.
All right, we're
Um,
getting, and that's an important
Exactly.
step in that direction.
I have a question about the current tax rate. In 2017, let me check the numbers, the residential was 12.9% for property tax, and commercial was 10.6. Can you tell me what the current prevailing rates that are collected are?
I don't have those handy. I can come back to you.
That would be great.
Okay.
You
I
want
really
the commercial and residential, right?
correct. Correct.
We'll follow up with those.
That would be great, because that, of course, results in how much pilot is collected, and so
Sure.
I'm trying to understand exactly where the mix is. And are
Yes.
we still, with the full build out at the end of 2017 and the reduction in the tax abatements for the buildings, it became a 50-50 match for the most part for residential contribution versus commercial.
Mhm.
Due to the pandemic, has that ratio changed at all?
I, it would be, we'll know better at our quarter end. I can tell you, for the quarter, that would be, the end of April. We'll have a better idea of what the picture looks like. It doesn't show up as well, in, our first quarter, which is January, end of January. So we can provide you an update, but anecdotally, no. We have, pretty much met our target or expected budget numbers as it relates to revenue. I think the biggest swing would be, as I noted earlier, the percentage rent, that's going to continue, but we did budget less for that. And so to the extent that's lower, that could move the needle slightly from being a near 50-50, driving the residential slightly higher, but that would probably be your biggest driver. The other unknown, any other unknown, such as if we had, again, some inflow that was not anticipated in the budget, I'd have to wait till the end of the year to make that determination. But on the whole, I think we're still expecting it to be pretty close to the same ratio. I think that ratio will, change largely if because 81% of those revenues are pilot related, are going to be as driven by the city as anything. The other thing that would affect it in sizable numbers would be, the continuing roll off of abatement. So that could affect it as well.
I didn't know if perchance, for example, there was a higher property valuation done on the commercial properties based on the renovations and rebuilds, and whether their property taxes may have gone up in the contribution as compared to the dwindling, the older buildings in the southern portion.
I would say that the other than 200 Liberty, which was done and completed kind of in this year, the property tax was probably already reflecting prior upgrades in the commercial spaces. But probably the next big improvement for them is what they've done at 200 Liberty, and that's not likely to have already been reflected in their assessment. So that could be a change. And so I don't know how long it takes for the city. I would say probably at least a year or two before they fully reflect the numbers. And then there's a dance where, commercial properties in particular will have an extended period of trying to negotiate with the city if they have a difference of view. I don't know that they are largely successful or not in that. That's not really sort of our call, but to answer your question specifically, I think you probably aren't going to see a change in theirs. If anything, they could argue the opposite, which is, they have a significant retail component as well as the commercial component. And as that has a significant impact on the commercial space and occupancy and renewals and new terms for new spaces. So you could see that their income could drop significantly, which would affect their tax. But that remains to be seen.
So I want to interrupt because Pam, if we go back, Lucian, on the slides, I saw 51% was from the resident and 44% was from commercial.
I think she was adding in the other as well, as did I. Yeah, on that slide, it's pretty close.
Other wouldn't have
49,
any
51.
reference. That's not taxes. Those are other payments, right?
That's all payments.
Payments, yes, but they're not.
Other is Hotel Marina.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It says it on the slide.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there you go. All right. Sorry, Tammy. Finish your questions. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to check on the capital budget and the capital plan. We passed resolutions and had dialogue about South End Avenue going back now 5 years. It's been a very long time that we've been waiting for capital improvements on South End Avenue. As you well know, BJ, we've discussed the loss of life
Yep.
and the
Yep.
safety issues that are along there. The community board worked long and hard with the Battery Park City Authority, from everything from working groups to presentations to walking tours. And I'm a little dismayed at the dialogues that we're having, because I don't see that in part of the capital plan for improvements. And so I'm wondering where that is in the budget line, and whether that's a capital project. You're talking very much about sustainability bonds, but I'm really looking
Yeah.
Can you
at,
move to page 8 just so that Tammy
See, we
can?
have it. Go ahead.
yep.
Yeah.
I see a line item for it.
So there is, we do
Yeah,
have
there's
a,
a-
we do have a line item for South End Avenue for this year to kick the design and engineering into gear. And you're right, Tammy, we have talked, spent a lot of time with that effort, and it is time that we get started. So, we're going to do what's within our control, and that's to begin the design and engineering in earnest this year. One of the challenges, which maybe this body can help with, is that there's also certainly the kind of the as important or more important piece of funding the construction of those changes on South End Avenue. And in our last request to the city, DOT doesn't have funding for it currently based on the last time we had checked with them, and the city did not approve that as part of our first round of this capital plan. So that's not to say that when we go back, that we're not going to go back again, but really following this through to completion.
BJ, before you go on, what do you mean that the city did not approve that in part of the first round of capital plans? That had been approved a long time ago, I believe.
So I'll check and get back to you, but I don't believe that we had received approval for the construction piece, and apologies if I'm misstating it, but I don't think we have that piece in our current capital funding.
Lucian, go to page 8, I think, please, when you have a chance, because I think on there, at least I thought I saw 2.3 million or 2.4 million.
That's for streetscape security throughout Battery Park. So that's a security related to
bottom, that's where it is, the 0.4.
That's really, yeah. And then then at the bottom is the redesign. I'm looking to see if I have this handy about the construction funding piece. So let me just double check that piece, Tammy, and we'll also, unless I find it while I'm looking here, but I think we may have a pot of funding for it. So I just need to check if we think that's sufficient.
I'd like to, obviously, the largest amount of dialogue that we have about capital projects, other than repair for pile remediation, is the resiliencies.
Yeah.
And the PRA. And I would really like to be able to see South End Avenue, which had to, it's a safety issue. And
Yeah.
I am, Nick will yell at me for saying this, but it is more likely that someone will die from being hit by a bus again on South End Avenue or a car than someone will drown from water coming over the Esplanade down in the southern area. So, when Gwen asked at a public meeting, would we choose to prioritize the South End Avenue over resiliency in terms of getting the project started? Yes, I think that we need open space right now, and the loss of open space and parkland within the next year as we're rebounding out of this is not a good choice versus fixing the street and ensuring street safety, because there are more people walking and biking, and the trucks and the cars are not helpful here.
Yeah,
I don't see that reflected in any of the capital budget for year 2021. So the direction that I would hope that we could go.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think the question is, we do have some funding approved for the design and engineering, and the question is, do we have sufficient funds approved from the city yet for the construction? And that's what I'll get back to you on. But we do, I hear you, and we do intend to start it this year.
That would be helpful. Thank you. Tim,
Yeah.
do you have something
It
else?
also goes to, we have it in our budget request for Community
Good.
Board 1. So,
Yeah, we do. That's true, as a district needs, right?
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
But if Tammy, if I can talk to some of the the community members and come back to you, because I'm sure you're gonna have more to say, and I hope you do.
I will.
I will. I
Okay.
hope you do, please. All right, so I'm gonna go to Pat Smith, then Miss Marinova, then Marianne Braverman, then Victoria Ferrello, and then Isaac. Well, it's actually Daniel. So Daniel, I'm gonna say your name wrong, so I'm not gonna even say it. Daniel. All right, so Pat Smith, please unmute him. Okay, Pat.
Hi, Justine. Thank you very much.
Pat?
Kudos to the broadsheet for doing the deep dive on our ground rent issue.
Mhm.
With all due respect, may I let's put pilot aside. Pilot is the property tax that is done by the New York City Council and the mayor. That's a broken system. That's a system that elected officials have been talking for years about fixing. This board, this body, I don't know what we can do except pay it, so we pay our pilot. Let's
Mhm.
keep our focus on the thing we can control, which is the ground rent. Right
Mhm.
now, the people of Battery Park City pay ground rents 100 million, 200 million more than the authority needs. And so that surplus goes to the city of New York. And we've had debates about how it's spent or who spends it or who decides. Who cares? Why are the residents of Battery Park City forced to pay $100, $200 million more? It basically is a tax. So we have to negotiate the ground rent. And
Yes.
despite BJ's very good words about these, the authority has not been negotiating with the coalition in good faith. The authority farmed this job out to a consultant who gets together with the coalition perhaps once a year, shows little grasp of the issues, and obviously doesn't have the power to make a deal. And these negotiations have been grinding on and getting nowhere. So we have to get the authority, get the staff of the authority to sit down at the table with the coalition negotiators, and let's get to where we need to get. We got there in 2009, 2011. We did these negotiations directly with the staff of the authority. The elected officials were very instrumental in getting that done. And I would ask of this board, the one thing, we've talked about this for more than a year. One thing this board could do would get a resolution before the full community board calling on Senator Kavanaugh, calling on Assemblymember New, calling on Assemblymember Glick to report back, set a date, June 1st, July 4th, that they have to report back to you to what they have done to get the authority to enter into direct, face-to-face, good faith negotiations with the coalition to address this ground rent issue. Or a year from now, we will still be having this conversation. Thank you.
And Pat, very well said, and let me interrupt and say this, not only Senator Kavanaugh, Yuli New, Deborah Glick, but also the comptroller, who right now is Scott Stringer, and he's maybe our next mayor. So he also will be a very valuable person at the table to be giving information and helping us here. So once again, I think this needs to happen soon.
Justine, we have a Battery Park City Authority Board appointed by the governor.
Yeah,
I think the governor is going to be very responsive to outreach from
Yeah.
the Senate, the chairman of the Senate Housing Committee.
Mr.
And so
Kavanaugh.
I don't know how responsive this governor is going to be to Scott Stringer, but we do need I mean, the goal is to resolve this ground rent issue. The goal is to decide that we have to stop this ruinous cycle as outlined in the broadsheet. And that's
Yeah.
done by direct. I was there in 2009, 2011. We got it done.
So you know the power. You
Yeah.
know the power of these folks, and it's important. So yes, we're asking, and I'm hoping that some representatives from these folks are on the call as attendees. I just can't recognize their names. But thank you so much for sharing, Pat. And let's move on to Ms.
Justine,
Marinova.
if I could just to make
Oh,
one
to respond, yes.
factual correction on, because I think, Pat, thanks for your comments. You did note that, as everyone on the call knows, that we don't control the taxes. But I did want to correct the impression that might have been made that there's 200 million extra in ground rent that flows to the city. That actually is not correct. Rent collections is just under 50 million. The vast majority of what goes to the city is related to pilot, and that's not something the authority controls. All the other concerns, BJ and the team have been working quite hard on addressing.
Yeah, and that 50 million includes the commercial ground rent too.
Thank
But
you.
yes, I do hear you,
Yes.
Pat. And again, I do agree. Despite the frustrating pace as of late, that we do need to address these resets. We do agree on that point.
Well, thank you. Because yeah, there's a building coming up. I thought, has it happened, reset already, or is that October?
It's yeah. A lot of people saved all of these resets for me and Pam.
There you
So
go. So
that's
it's-
also, part of the challenge is addressing, all of the ones that are imminent, while also being mindful of the ones that may not be imminent, like the 2011 buildings that Pat was referencing. They negotiated a 30-year agreement. They're 10 years into it, but it's kicking the can on that is not something that we're interested in, but it is complicated, and
No, that makes sense. And also those 11 buildings have a 3% annual increase built into it. So no reset, but 3% a year. And being in corporate America, I cannot tell you since 2005, I have never seen anybody get a 3% raise in corporate America. It's more like 1 or 2%. So I think 3% is too high. Anyhow, put that aside. Pat, thank you. Maybe Ms. Marinova?
Yeah.
Thanks,
Pat.
Hi, I'm a new homeowner here in Battery Park, and I'm sorry I joined a little bit late. In summation, could you just kind of summarize what is the gist of the impact of all of these budgets and numbers that you've shared on taxes for homeowners in Battery Park City? If you have any particular numbers, such as like we're expecting a 5% increase or 10% increase or whatever it might be, if you can just summarize that, that's my first question. And my second question was, this article that was mentioned in a newspaper that I believe was called The Broadsheet. Is it possible for the person who mentioned this article to send it to the host so they can send it to everyone? Because I've been looking for it and I cannot find it.
Yeah, I think we all have it.
Awesome. If you can just send that, that would be great. And then really looking forward to the gist of what this means for taxes.
Yeah, I would go back to, what Pam was saying earlier, and I may have mentioned too, is that the authority does not set taxes. We basically are the intermediary that collects the taxes, which are called pilot in Battery Park City. So the fate of tax rates, for the city is in the hands of the City of New York and the Department of Finance and the budget set by the city. And so, Justine, as you and I have talked about, maybe you should have the Department of Finance here sometime. But we don't drive. We don't have a role in the setting of tax rates.
Right, so is there any impact from looking at all of these budgets and numbers here? Are we going to be disproportionately taxed because of that? Or is there any impact whatsoever that can be gauged from, what you're privy to?
Yeah, the tax rates in Battery Park City are calculated as all of the tax rates in New York City are. So this is not a separate there's not a separate tax rate for Battery Park
Let me help
City.
you out. So basically, this presentation today is very narrowly focused on what the authority can allegedly have control over, which is the ground rent. The ground rent is only a piece of what we pay as homeowners in Battery Park City. The pilot is the other piece. And as I guess we've learned tonight, the ground rent is only 50 million in collections, whereas the other side is 280 million. Please excuse my math.
About that.
And that 280 million is the pilot payment in lieu of taxes, but that should be similar to what is being charged on the other side of the West Side Highway. Similar-ish. I mean,
Yeah, based on
I'm being very vague about it.
the kind of the weird structure on how property
Yes.
taxes are assessed and what have you by the city. But you're right, it's a city process.
It's a city tax. So to answer your question, it's much more complicated, but I would like to try to have in the next 2 meetings. So this committee meets the first Wednesday of every month. In the next 2 meetings, I want to be focusing on the finances and the taxes and figure out ways to get understanding, first of all, and then try to give us relief. So please come back, and thank you for your really, really pertinent questions. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Next, I think, is going to be Marianne Braverman.
Marianne.
Okay, her hand's not up, so I gotta just find her in the attendee section. Give me 1 second.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, she doesn't know how to raise her hand. She thought she did, but she
No
didn't.
problem, no problem. Marianne, you're unmuted.
Can you hear me? One place.
Yes.
I can.
Good. Okay.
See?
I'm on both the phone and the computer.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now I'm just going to speak through the phone. Question 1. When Pam spoke earlier about the capital budget and work for the community center, is that asphalt green?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the
Yeah, no, you don't have to go into
terrace.
detail. I know there are problems.
It's over there on
and
top
all
of
that.
asphalt green
Okay.
and there's
I
no.
just want
Yeah.
to make a statement. Asphalt Green has stopped doing any senior programming. So while they've reopened, while they've started classes, and they never told me directly. I learned this from the person who used to do the senior programming, was fired last year. And also now from the yoga instructor. So they have an agreement with the Battery Park City Authority to use that space for their programming, but they're not doing anything on their side to give back to the community. So just want that to be a topic for discussion at an appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. Just
Okay.
Nick, you'll flag that for follow-up, please.
Okay, now my other question, I've been asking since last spring, early summer, for some kind of a meeting, like a town hall, which we haven't had for over a year, about what was happening, a little more nitty gritty, Ray, COVID. Is staff gone? What extra expenses did you have? Where did you have savings?
BJ,
And how is that affecting the functioning this year?
I'm going to interrupt. BJ, do you have answers to this
Sure.
easily, or do you want to punt this to Nick for later on down the? It's up to you. It's important, but I want the answer.
I'll give a brief answer, and then maybe between you, Marianne, me, and Nick, we can figure out what additional information might be helpful. Pam's presentation showed how we ended up financially in 2020. For the pandemic, and things remained on track. Where from an expense perspective, we didn't spend as planned, was, as you might imagine, programming, which had to be reined in significantly. Also, we slowed hiring, for obvious reasons, and bringing on seasonal staff. But we are back. We're getting back on track in that regard now that the outlook is looking better.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And
I
I'm
wasn't able to
thankful,
see the slides, so I'll look them up later.
and I'm
Okay.
thankful you got online, first of all. And secondly, I don't mean to push you off at all, but I want to focus because I know that BJ and Pam have to go. So I don't want to, I want people to have a chance to talk about this issue. So next person up, I think I said was Mr. Astrachan. Is that how you say your name? I'm sorry. Then Vittoria Fiorello and Taylor Banning.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, yes, Isaac Daniel Astrachan. I'm a resident in Battery Park City. And I think for me now, especially since the press is talking about this issue, there seems to me, from what I'm hearing, a lack of urgency in dealing with these issues of the ground rent and the resets. So I'm wondering, where is that lack of urgency coming from? Is it because the structure is so complex that it's hard to get everybody around the table? Or is there, other motives for that lack of urgency? Because to me, it seems like as a, apartment owner, forgetting about COVID and everything we've been through, the value of my apartment is going to keep dropping the longer this goes.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get worse. So I'm trying to understand, where are we going and why are we getting there faster?
Yeah, I would say, again, I agree with what the worst case scenario might look like, and that's why we are intent on taking action. And we do view this as an urgent scenario. I think that, and we're going to continue to keep at it because we do agree that these fair market value reset formulas need to be addressed. It is drawn out because it is complicated, but also because we are dealing with multiple buildings as well. But we're going to keep at it.
Just to follow up, are there things because there's not much talk about this being a community. I hear more about with the numbers, sounds more like a business than a community. But are there things that the community can do to help with, your decision making and getting whoever else needs to be at the table to be at the table?
So well, go ahead, BJ, you answer, but I've got an answer for you too. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say that I believe we're talking to the right people, the condo coalition, condo board about it. Our board is engaged. Certainly, again, advocating for yourselves with this community board and your local elected officials is always a good thing to do as well. And I would also say the reason this presentation this presentation is purposely finance focused because that was just simply the topic of the night. We were talking about our parks operations and horticulture and maintenance at last month's meeting, and we were talking about resiliency before that, and we'll be talking about resiliency again. And also, parks programming is coming again, and events are coming back to Battery Park City, and so there's a lot to the Battery Park City Authority that is, it's much more to me than our balance sheet.
No, which makes sense, BJ, and thank you. And yes, so Daniel, I'm gonna call you Daniel because I can't pronounce your
Isaac,
last name.
Isaac. Just go Isaac.
Just
Yes,
go
thank
Isaac.
you.
Perfect. I apologize for my butchering your name. But Isaac,
problem.
so things to pay attention to are, number one, the board of your building. Number two, every building, 18 condos in Battery Park City, both north and south, are members of the Homeowners Coalition.
Mhm.
They have representatives, I believe that, and Pat Smith is one of the people who are on the building. I don't think he's in your building, but they have representatives that have been meeting with BJ Jones and the BPC Authority for a long time now, for about a year or plus, and their consultants. this has been a process that's been going on. People have gotten frustrated. So John Delaportis and Daniel Ackerman, is that right?
Yeah.
Have also formed a entity called the Battery Alliance, and they have their own kind of more rabble-rousing position. How's that? But you can look them up under Battery Alliance as well as coming to these meetings and connecting with me and connecting with the community board, because this is something that I have been fighting for and pushing for years.
Yeah, and that is a good point, to make sure that you're plugged into what your condo board is doing in this regard. And I would give a shout out to the Condo Coalition, Bob Zach, who's been great, and
yes,
the other
Yeah,
members who you have a fierce representatives, and they've been talking to the elected officials as well.
So I know I'm actually on the board of my building, and what I'm
So-
hearing is not very good news from what
No.
what's been going on so far.
Yeah,
So
I think that
I am aware. I'm aware, but I'm here to bring up what I hear, which is not
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need to get to the positive.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. And thank you. But please keep coming, I guess. And please keep the conversation going, because the more information that we can present and the more people that are saying, hey, we can't afford this anymore. And I know we're in a different position than renters who are in, like, for example, NYCHA housing or whatever else, because we have our homes as collateral, I suppose, assuming we're not mortgaged to the hilt on our homes. But at the end of the day, at some point, it's just going to be a value loss proposition. Besides the fact that I know I've lived here for many years, have kept coming back, after 9/11, came back, raised my family here, raised 2 children here, one child of which is going to speak later, I think, when I finally call on her, who can't afford to stay here. And it's frustrating to me, because this is such a beautiful, wonderful community to live in. And it was such a wonderful place for the years that I lived here, and such a wonderful place to be. And what is happening now is that we are being forced out of our homes. And yes, it doesn't mean we're going to be forced out of our homes and necessarily be living under the Brooklyn Bridge, but it's still being forced out of our homes. And I think that there's something that our elected officials can do to help us not have that happen, because we do pay $338 million in 2020. Our 51% of that is going towards that. So we are value adders, and it would be really nice to be appreciated for that. Anyway, I'm shutting up now. This is taking, it's been an hour and a half. Lucian, do let Robin in. She's in the attendee section. Sorry. And
Pam and I can take one or two more questions, Justine.
okay, so let me see who's left here. And okay, so Victoria should go next, then Taylor, and then I'm gonna go back to Tammy. So wait for Tammy. Don't wait for. So I gotta get Tammy and maybe Bob too. I mean, Bob will definitely have a chance.
Don't worry, I can always stalk you.
That's right.
Thank you, Tammy. Sorry, I want to have the community speak, so I appreciate your patience, everybody.
Okay.
Go ahead. So
Justine, you're saying Vittoria Fariello is next?
Victoria next, who's our district leader for
Okay.
Battery Park City, and then Taylor Banning.
Hi, Victoria.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for this incredibly informative session. I just want to, for people who maybe are slow to the take like I am, just to try to clarify what I've understood from this in terms of the pilot payments versus the ground rent. So the ground rent is the rent that is paid for the building pays to use that property for the building. Pilot is instead the taxes that are paid. The pilot are the taxes that are paid to the city, correct? So they fall under the city. Yeah, no, Justine, please help me out here. If I'm wrong, clarification.
The pilot is
Pam, feel free to help her out too.
Yeah, the pilot, you can think of the calculation of pilot as the taxes that otherwise would be paid to the city, but are instead collected by Battery Park. And then a portion of that is used for our operations and debt service. So it's not a 1-for-1 pilot equals tax that flows to the city, but the calculation is based on if you lived anywhere in the city, what would your tax be?
Okay, all right, so that's
Just
helpful.
the part of it is dedicated for use in Battery Park before it
Right.
goes into
Right.
the general fund for use by the city in general.
Exactly. So, so the ground rent then is something that the Battery Park City Authority has an ability to negotiate with, or just, you know, to has some influence on. Whereas
Yes.
pilot, on the other hand, is something that is not. It's something, as you said, for pass through, you have to collect what they tell you to collect. So there are two things that I think would be really helpful. One, and again, forgive my ignorance here. So the city does it. So that means that we have the city council and the mayor and the comptroller who are going to determine what that payment is. Is that correct? You're saying that it's the same across the city. So
the New York City Department of Finance would make the determination. And in making that determination, I think someone earlier on the call said it's been a complicated analysis for many, many years. They tried to simplify it. I think they made it even more complicated. I'm not sure, but it is a determination by the Department of Finance. And in making that determination, part of it is the city will budget for, you know, and I think Justine, you might have said, what are their needs for the year? Sometimes that tax increases, sometimes it decreases.
okay.
But it is a city determined amount.
So it's the Department of Finance, which is under the purview of the mayor, basically.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
What I'm trying to get at is who is the person who is most influential in this particular thing, and then in determining what pilot is, how much it is. Then the reset is, and that is also under that's under a separate agreement. Is that true? Or in a separate?
That's a function of the each building's lease.
The lease that they have on the
with Battery, yeah, between the building and Battery Park City.
Battery Park City. So the reset is actually something that the Battery Park City Authority can address.
That's the purview, yes.
Okay, okay. So I guess the question is, and I know that the authority is very concerned about, you know, how to handle this. The question is, how can we help? Who are the people who need to be pushed to help solve this issue? And maybe Justine, maybe we could jump in there and give a hand too. But I'm, I guess, basically asking BJ and Pam if you have thoughts on what's the most effective way of addressing this.
Yeah, you know, as you noted, this is something that we do have authority over, although the city has great interest because they're impacted by the results of such negotiations. So, you know, we are certainly the party, one of the parties that need to be pushed, and you are pushing. You know, and then there's, you know, the other, this is a negotiation. So it's to, you know, it's the various buildings or the coalition, and in this example with the condos, you know, trying to negotiate a resolution where, you know, we have the right balance in, you know, adhering to our fiduciary responsibility while also addressing, you know, the fair market value reset formulas that we agree are untenable. So, you know, talking to Justine and the electeds is another way just to amplify, you know, that you're on the record that we need to address this, but we hear you, and it's, you know, part of this is just, it's a complicated negotiation to figure out the right structure and for everyone to agree to it. So it'll take some time, but again, we're intent on you know, doing something about it.
So I appreciate that, and I think one final question, and then I will let the next speaker go. But when we so I understand that you are concerned about this, and so we're going to be we need to come together, and forgive me because I just lost my train of thought. Something just came up. But in any case, I do appreciate that, and I do really appreciate hearing what needs to go. That was my point, was that what is happening, what I'm hearing is happening, is that and is clear. And certainly I know there was a speaker previously who said he knows real estate people, agents, or whom I've spoken with as well. Prices are dropping dramatically. So that's going to affect the revenue anyway. So if this isn't addressed, I hate to see it be addressed after that price drop is so drastic. Then it's harmful to the city, it's harmful to our residents, it's harmful to the community. And, you know, so it's good for nobody, basically. So the urgency, even though it doesn't seem urgent, especially if we talk about a reset date, the truth is that we need to be addressing this really rather urgently, so that we're not in a place where people are forced to leave, and then you know, prices drop all across the board and we're all in hot water. So, but thank you so much.
Yep, thanks, Victoria.
Well said.
Thanks so much, Victoria. Let's get a cup of coffee or something and we can talk more about it. I appreciate it. Thank you. And Taylor Banning. And then we go back to Tammy, and then I think I can release you guys. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us. Go ahead, Taylor.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much. I'm a resident of Battery Park City High. I just had a few quick questions, more zooming out. To what extent can the authority determine the buckets, like the purposes, the use, allocations, or proportions in the buckets? You mentioned like operating costs, for example, of all the funds it collects.
Mm-hmm.
Just curious.
Yeah, oh, the buckets that we were talking about with the joint purpose fund and
settlement agreement,
where that's dedicated. Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I'll be curious. Sorry about that. It's a good question. You know, the last time this happened was in 2010. Pam and I were not here for that process to see how it played out. And so, you know, as one of the parties that has to agree to it, we certainly have a role to play. But I'm not sure what's in store for these negotiations. It will be.
But you have a role to play. Okay, thank you. The next question is also, I guess, this is also just a zoom out question as well. From which people or groups or agencies exactly does the authority receive all its funds? Is it those 18 buildings, or are there other contributors to those funds?
It's a combination. It's both, as Pam was saying, it's residential properties and also commercial properties in Battery Park City. So it's so there's the condo buildings, which is the 18 that Justine was referencing. You know, the 12 rental buildings. There's Brookfield Place, Goldman Sachs, and as you know, Pam was saying too, we have revenue from percentage rent on retail and permit fees. Right. That's minor, and you know, some things like that, and it primarily comes in the form of pilot from these buildings, and then to a lesser extent ground rent, and then this other, you know, category which is small.
Okay, if it's helpful to you, this is Nick Spordone. Just if for the layperson, and if I say this wrong, I'm sure Pam I'll hear from her later. If you were picturing you had $1 in your pocket or $1 in the authority's pocket, roughly 75 to 80 cents of that dollar would come from pilot. The rest of it would come from ground rent and the other fees. So the vast majority of what we collect is coming in from the pilot.
Yes, no, sorry, I understood. I was more curious about the actual organizations. Like, is it the management company, the building, and then
anything you'd add to that, Pam?
Yeah, I would only say think of every building that is standing in Battery Park City. Each of them is renting that land from the authority, which represents a ground lease, and under each ground lease there is associated revenue.
Okay, and then the last question was, you know, how much detail is the authority required or able to disclose to, you know, a Battery Park City resident or just a person upon request for like detail?
Our financial statements are actually on the website, so I would recommend you first take a look at that. It provides a fair amount of financial information.
Yep.
That would be the first thing I would recommend.
Yeah.
So it would depend on what kind of information you're.
Yeah.
So
lot
not
of-
necessarily all, but plenty of the details can be accessible or provided or disclosed.
Yeah, there's a lot, as a government entity, we have to
Mhm.
report a lot.
So check our
The
website.
public
There's a lot of, there's probably more information than you care to read on the website.
Right.
Taylor, I'll send
Literally.
you the link, Taylor. I have it up, so stand by and I'll just send that to you now. You take a look at it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you all.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Tammy, you want to take it home on this topic?
Yeah,
I know
so
Bob
first,
wants to follow up, but I'll let you go first and then Bob.
first I'd love to see the regular full financials versus summary slides like this. If that could please be shared with the community board, that would be appreciated. I wondered if you could give us any information about the ferries and the impact of the new increased ferry service in terms of what has been done with Allied for security and for the wayfinding signage and other things like that. If that's not available to comment on this evening, if you could come back to us on that.
Well, we'll come back to you on that, and Nick and Pat can, speak to that.
Yeah,
so-
so that makes sense because we did discuss it. We met with them, Tammy, and we
Yeah.
had some
Yeah.
some updates, but as it gets closer to actually being an eventuality, Nick, it would be good to get that more information. But go ahead, Tammy. I'm sorry.
For sure. We had our walkabout last month, but happy to keep you guys updated.
Is there any,
Thank you.
Are there any updates? Okay. And in terms of budget and staffing and things like that, we had discussed at some point, BJ, you and I, about the rise in, as you were staffing up, taking a look and potentially trying to do a partnership with some of the organizations downtown to help get people back up on their feet.
Yeah, I remember that conversation, and I think that's a good idea. And I think that could be something with your help suggesting, some of those groups that we could connect as we have postings for
I'd be
opportunities.
happy. That would be great. I know that the Hudson River Park Trust works with the Doe Fund. I didn't know, what organization particularly the authority works with, but if there is an opportunity, we can either connect you directly with some of the not-for-profits, and I'm happy to work on that dialogue to help people get back on their feet.
Yeah, I would be interested in exploring that further.
Okay. I leave it to you to reach out, and we would be happy to make those conversations happen because I think that they're important as well.
Well, let's
and then you did mention last year, and Nick mentioned that, and you alluded to here that we didn't staff up as much. We didn't, necessarily for the gardening, for the programming, for things like that.
Yeah.
So would you say that the budget looking for 2021 is equal to or less than what was initially budgeted for between 2019 and 2020 pre-pandemic?
Equal to or more than. We budgeted for it. We simply didn't hire because of the restrictions, during the pandemic. And so, yeah, we do expect to be back to full force.
Within this budget here?
As we speak, we're staffing up, yeah.
Okay. And what other capital projects, if you don't mind going to the capital projects list that you have?
Yeah. That's slide.
It's slide 8.
I think.
Yeah.
Lucian.
Thanks, Lucian.
You could do slide 7 and then 8. Yeah. I wondered what I don't see. I see for expenditures, right? We have operating. You have debt service. What key projects that we have discussed that have not been put back on the plate for 2021? That could, and we had talked about at some point having some of those go under whether they would be considered potentially operating versus capital, and how to divide up a project to be able to use the funds instead of having to bond for additional revenues and keeping more of the money in-house.
Mm-hmm. Which projects are you referring to?
Well, it's hard because I'm not looking at what the key projects. I couldn't find the last time we had a slide on key projects to be able to do the
I would
comparison to see
say,
what's fallen off and what's not.
I know, like in other presentations. Yeah, I would say that we have there, there was a delay because of the pandemic, for example, on the police memorial, and that was because of there was a construction pause that affected that, and Rockefeller Park Playground, and so there had been some delay due to the pandemic because of that. And so those we have all kind of picked up where we left off. But yeah, we could cross reference that. But those projects, Wayfinding was another one that's not listed here that we've talked about as a key project. That's that's underway as well.
Is that fully funded and slated to be complete for year 2021 based on budget from year 2020?
Yeah, that one I believe we have full funding for and are in the middle of that project. So that will be happening this year. And also just back to revisiting our conversation, I did check. I was doubting myself, and yes, and we have not received approval from the city for the construction portion of South End Avenue redesign.
And is that from a budget perspective or from a DOT perspective?
I don't know, frankly, what informed that decision from the city.
Because we had DOT approval.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll have Lucian look at it on our side.
Yeah, we could maybe talk about that on the side. I don't have any other intel, but we could maybe talk about how to approach that in our next request.
Okay.
Our upcoming request.
I think perhaps what would be very helpful for the community when we're looking at this, you're giving us just a list of what is looking forward. We'd like to see what was in the past, what's been fulfilled, to understand what's maybe changed, because that information is not reflective on anything that's been shown, and does not help the community track from year to year.
Yep.
That would be great.
Yeah, no problem.
And with that, I cede my time. Thanks.
Okay. Thank
Thanks
you
so much, Tammy. And you know what? Robin has a question, and for some reason she's in the chat, and then maybe we're done. And then I don't want to not give Robin a chance if that's okay. And Bob Schnack. Oh
Robin,
my God, Bob
you're
Schnack.
muted.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, Robin.
It's fine. My question was answered, so thank you.
Oh,
okay.
thank you. All right, Bob, quick question back, because I really want to let these guys go. They have been so gracious with their time, as has everybody else, and we got more things to talk about. So go ahead, Bob, you're up.
I just wanted to say that as a resident of Battery Park City for 33 years, I really appreciate the quality of the work of the Battery Park City Authority. And I think when I think of the programming, it's extraordinary quality programming. When I think about the grounds, we really do have quality grounds, and we put a lot of effort into it. But I think differently about when we get to resiliency. When I think about resiliency, I think about urgency. And so I was a corporate person for lots of years, and I always thought of things in terms of simplicity, economy, and easy deployability. And so when I look at some of the projects that are planned by the Battery Park City Authority, they are big development projects that'll shut things down for a long time, require big changes. I think Justine probably agrees with me in some of this, and they're going to cost a lot of money. And so the struggle over Wagner Park, for example, started out with whether or not we needed another restaurant center. And so what we end up with is a resiliency related mound of dirt with a restaurant community center kind of integrated into it. Whereas I would just kind of think about the quickest resiliency solutions that we could invent in Battery Park City and then use in other parts of city planning. So I'm just wondering, when you start planning these things, are you thinking simple, economical, easily deployable, or are you thinking grand projects that look great and are the highest quality in the world? How are you going at these things? And what do you think, Justine?
Raise good issues, Bob. I don't know if BJ and Pam are able to answer us right now, but it'd be good answers to have.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that, we've tried to address in the multitude of resiliency meetings we've had. I hear you. I do, I think what's driving us in our resiliency plans are the threat of serious storms, and it's a question of when, not if. And so it's designing to that from a resiliency perspective, while also kind of honoring the design legacy of Battery Park City, certainly, and the public use of our public spaces. So that certainly informs the design, but it is driven, no question, by protecting this neighborhood from what's ahead, which is worse than what we've seen.
Yes.
And for a final question, I noticed that you have Pier A structural is $4.2 million. That, as a resiliency person, strikes me as, I wonder what it is, because my understanding is that if there is a flood, we're going to let Pier A go. So what structural investments are we making in that, and how's it going to work? Have we decided what we're going to do with it and committed $4.2 million to that?
Yeah, this isn't particularly related to resiliency. This is about maintaining this very old structure. I'm going to use the word structure too much, structurally, and shoring it up. In terms of resiliency, what we have already done, and tandem with the restoration of Pier A, which coincided with Hurricane Sandy, is that we have flood-proofed it so that it can withstand water damage and things like that in a storm event. So we have taken measures to protect it.
So was that, BJ, to ask the question, was that 4.2 spent in no, this is for the fiscal year 2021, so that's
this is about projects either underway or forthcoming, and this one is
so I guess, and then we'll end it with this, if that's all right, and we'll move on to the next thing. But
sure.
I guess my point is with Pier A,
yeah,
so $4.2 million to keep it structurally sound from resiliency. Why can't we then also put towards capital budget money to helping each condominium building, rental as well as condos of the 18 condos, meet the local law 97 to be resilient? Because these buildings, our buildings, we can't afford them all. And that's what I hear from people, is that it's just insanely expensive. They're going to be getting huge fines, and it's not about not wanting to become compliant.
Right. Yep.
We want
Yep.
to. It makes sense. We want to save
Right.
our planet and
Right.
keep it. We get that, but it's also, we don't have the money. So
Yeah.
if we can find the money to keep Pier A going, can't we find the money to keep the buildings going too?
Yeah, I think that would be a good subject for a sustainability meeting.
A sustainability. How about? But I think it's also about a meeting
It's
with
all
the financial
interconnected.
folks. I mean,
Yeah, it is all
part of the
interconnected.
capital budget. It's all connected. Basically, looking at it and saying some of the money that's going out needs to come back in, because
Yeah.
we need to keep the whole place sustainable. And what I think is a great mission of Battery Park City has been to be on the forefront of being stewards of climate change and stewards of
Yeah.
the green effect of everything, which is great. But
I
we
just
need help.
wanted to I just want to jump in and second Justine's
Yeah.
motion there. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and these are all
We,
things we
something we
talk
need to
about.
do.
And it's
And-
something we take into consideration in our lease negotiations too.
And what I've understood is it's a bigger conversation than just you guys. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is help me invite people, whether it's gonna be your meeting
Yeah.
or my meeting. I don't care. I want it
Yeah.
done.
As
You
we
guys do it,
consider,
and
yeah,
And between now and June, these are all conversations to have, because as much as we're fighting about wanting to keep, what I said in my article, 200 million now is enough, my new 200 million. At the end of the day, we also need to move the ball down the court, and there are so many other values that are so important, including funding NYCHA housing and getting those people
yeah, yeah.
back. I mean, there's so many important issues, and if we can actually have everyone put at the table, we could actually move this forward. So, all right.
Yeah.
Can I shut this down now and let these lovely folks leave? Although I invite you to stay, because we do have more questions for Nick, but I'm not gonna do them now. I got a lot of questions for you, Nick.
Oh,
You
I'm,
get the-
I'm loaded for bear. I'm here for the duration.
Thank
sister.
you.
Let's
Thank
do
you,
it.
Pam, and thank you, Justine, for having us. But yes, the BPCA grand finale is Pat Smith and Nick Spordone. So we'll leave that to them.
There you
Thank
go.
you, Pam, and thank you, BJ.
Yes.
Thank you, Tammy.
Great seeing everyone. Thank you.
Yes, no, this was wonderful. Thank you so much. All right.
Thanks.
I think we're
Take
gonna
care,
move to
everybody.
the
Stay
second
safe.
topic, and I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate 2 hours of your time. So thank you so much for your night. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Think of it this way. You got out of doing an open community meeting, so it's about the same amount of time.
Oh, there you go. And you don't have to commute. So now you could just
Now you're talking.
right? Now you
Exactly.
don't have to commute any place. So you're good. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I think next on our agenda is the Tribeca Film Festival installation. And so I think we have Peter Downing. I'm going to screw your name up, Arnold, and Michael. I'll go with Peter, Arnold, and Michael. You guys are up.
Yes, Justine, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you all. I'm Peter Downing. And do we need a moment, Arnold, to get to screen share, or are you okay?
Let me check if I have access.
Okay, sounds good. Justine, does anyone need a stretch break, a bio break, anything before we? You've all been.
No.
Good, because we got a lot of an agenda, and I don't know. I think people will take it if they need it, so don't worry about it. Unless you
good.
guys need it, and then
No,
in which
no,
case we're good.
We're absolutely fine, and I promise we'll make the most of your time and the time you provided for us
Thank you
here.
for listening to us with our local stuff, so I appreciate it.
No,
Thank you.
it's fascinating. We're Tribeca's in the neighborhood as well, and it's we learned a lot in this time. So anyway, I'll go ahead and jump in, Justine and all. My name's Peter Downing, and on behalf of the Tribeca Film Festival, it is my pleasure and our pleasure to be here on your agenda, and thank you for inviting us to share some updates with you on our plans for this year. I have had the great pleasure and privilege to be part of the Tribeca Film Festival since its founding. I have been the producer of the yearly Family Festival, the huge street fair we did on Greenwich Street for all those years, and many, many community events and screenings over the years. And in my time in that role, I have presented many times to Community Board 1, more specifically to the Tribeca Committee. So just want to give you a little sense of my background.
And Peter, I have to say, I think as you're saying that, we have met in past lives before. You have met both of my daughters, because both of them one of them certainly had films going on in it, and it was lovely. And we
wonderful.
certainly participated in the Family Festival, so the Family Day Festival. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Justine. So happy to hear that. And I don't want to hear how old your children are, because then that means you and I haven't aged a day. So we'll just have to we'll leave it at that, right? But as many of you on this call know, Tribeca, we're celebrating our 20th anniversary. Justine, that's just beyond remarkable. And we are thrilled, as part of that celebration and this year's offering, to help lead the return of live entertainment in New York City as the first major North American film festival to be held in person. It is huge, and it is an honor, and it is our pleasure, our passionate pleasure, to be leading that effort. The festival is scheduled this year from June 9th through the 20th, and we have big and exciting plans in the works. And to take you through what those plans are, it's my pleasure now to introduce you to several of my colleagues, first of which is Michael Scarna. Michael?
Hello. My name is Michael Scarna. I've been the senior event producer at Overland Entertainment for about 20 years now. I'm the lead producer of all the Tribeca Film Festival screening venues. We produce the US Open opening ceremonies, VIP areas of Global Citizen in Central Park. If you read New Yorker magazine, you know the New Yorker Festival, which we've been producing for over 20 years. Last year virtually, red carpets for Paramount, food festivals for Bon Appetit magazine. And in relation to this neighborhood, the Vuclico Polo Classic out in Liberty State Park, which hosts about 5,000 to 10,000 people, which line up to get onto ferries from Battery Park City. So we're familiar with the spaces and managing crowds and moving people quickly and safely. Last summer, when nobody was doing events, we produced the major drive-in program with Tribeca out in the Bronx and Long Island. We had like 500 cars in the Bronx in a parking lot by the beach, and it was incredible getting people back to work. And the work that went into that was actually a great blueprint that some city agencies and companies used to start doing events again. I'm a resident of Hell's Kitchen, but I look forward to working with you in your neighborhood, and I'll pass it back to Peter or Arnold if he's introducing himself.
Hi, everybody. Well, Peter and Michael are tough acts to follow, but allow me to introduce myself. I'm Arnold Sitruk. I'm the Senior Production Director for the Tribeca Film Festival. This is my 7th season. I do work on a seasonal basis as a freelancer. Throughout the rest of the year, I focus on also large outdoor events. I used to be the coordinating producer for the New York City Marathon from 2005 to 2010. Done lots of work on New York City parks, public plazas, streets, seen many transformations, and pretty much my role here with this particular venue is to work with the Overland team. I also have, since 2007, been on all sides of the equation over at Brookville Place and the North Cove, producing Wall Street Run. There's been US Open events, Brookfield Open. I've worked on sort of all sides, and most consistently working with the Arch Brookfield team as one of their on-site coordinators. So working with companies like Michael's Overland to make sure that they are operating in a safe manner while they're building their installation. There is free and flow access to pedestrians and working with vehicle movements and all that stuff. So happy to be part of this team.
Thanks so much, Arnold. And again, pleasure and a privilege to be sharing the partnering with these gentlemen, and especially because of all of our shared experience with the community and with the neighborhood. As I mentioned, the festival is June 9th through the 20th. And I also mentioned that it'll be the first major film festival in North America held in person. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that somebody? Okay, sorry. Over a 12-day period. It'll be a multi-screen outdoor festival. All the events, every single event at this moment is planned to be outdoors, spanning all boroughs. We will be from Battery Park to the Bronx. We will be from the east side to the west side, from downtown to uptown, and also from Brooklyn to Staten Island. As many of you on this call know, if you've been with us over the years, that our founding mission was to bring people together in the aftermath of September 11th. And as New York is emerging from the shadow of COVID-19 and we all get vaccinated and do what we need to do to keep moving forward, we are absolutely thrilled to be at the forefront of bringing people together again safely in person 20 years later. Continuing our traditions, and those traditions will include diverse programming, immersive exhibitions, games and films and concert, and a commemoration of the Juneteenth holiday, which wonderfully enough falls on closing night of our festival for the first time. Now, just a quick share with you on a couple of venues, and then we'll get in. I'll turn it back to the team to get into more specifics. We've confirmed these venues to take part in our footprint this year across the boroughs. And these venues include the Metrotech Commons in Brooklyn, the Empire Outlets in Staten Island, Hudson Yards in Manhattan, and especially and specifically for this committee, Brookfield Place, New York, and the Battery. In addition to what we're doing in all those places, we will hold community screenings in all of the boroughs, including the Bronx and the Queens, and including the Bronx and Queens, using a traveling 40-foot state-of-the-art LED cinema, the first mobile HD screens really in the country. But I'm talking too much, so I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues to help drill down and give you a little more specifics. And I'm first going to pass it over for some more logistics on the North Cove to Arnold. Arnold Sitruk.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, so my remarks here will be super brief. Michael and the Overland team have been working on this project for months with Tribeca leadership. As I said, my role is primarily to advise on safety and logistics in the North Cove. So, you know, all the unfun stuff that will lead to us to be able to provide screenings and panels and Q&As in a sort of resurgence year, we hope. So basically, you know, everything from trucks coming in to the North Cove during the build. We will work with the Brookfield security team, the Brookfield Arts, Brookfield's coordinators on site, BPCA staff, to ensure that vehicle movement is limited. All work zones during the build are barricaded, and ensuring that we adhere to our curfew every night of 10 p.m. Michael is going to go ahead and drill into the actual site plan and some of the more detailed logistics.
All right. So what you're looking at here, just to orient you, this is the North Cove Marina. And there's a compass there that points north to, again, orient yourself. I'm going to go from left to right and take you through the site. On the left corner, that whole jumble of black lines and boxes and such, that is our production compound, our back of house that'll be fenced in. And you'll see there's a circle right there. That is the torch. And just to the right of the torch is our screen structure. And our screen is about 40 feet wide, I think 30-something feet tall. And then in front of the screen, there's a small stage. And in front of that, you'll see all these different colored boxes. The smaller green and yellow boxes, those are pods of 2 seats. And when I say pods, I'm not talking about those restaurant structures you've seen on the streets. It's just 2 chairs with an outline on the floor that has been measured to be socially distanced from the seats behind and next to them. So tickets would be sold in 2s or 4s. So then the pink ones are the 4-person pods. So in here, we've got about 376 physical seats. And these are just chairs that stack. And at the end of the night, you know, I'll talk about this in a bit, we'll stack them and move them out of the way. Continuing along to the right, actually just above all of the seating, there's a purple pathway, and you'll see lots of arrows. There's red arrows and blue arrows. The red arrows are potential guest flow areas where we would load in the audience from the north side and the south side. And during show hours, we would detour the pedestrians. So instead of crossing the plaza during an event, we would divert them up the ramp and across the upper plaza. So that blue line that you see around the site, that's bike barricade. And then you'll see that where the dock entrance is, that's about where we're going to scan our tickets, just south of that, so down of that, where we'll scan tickets and get people pre-lined up to be able to bring them in quickly, and then again for them to exit quickly from the site. So our timeline, June 9 through 20, as Peter mentioned. So we're there Monday through Thursday from 4 to 10 p.m. And on the weekends, Friday through Sunday, noon to 10 p.m. 10 p.m. is the sound curfew, so there won't be any amplified sound after that. Okay, and I think on the next page.
Hey, Michael, if I may, just a quick insertion. So if you could stay on this drawing. For those of you who were familiar all the years when we had our drive-in this very location, very similar setup as far as the stage and the screen where it was facing. Big change here is the protocol observance and the capacity of crowds and how that all sorts of lays out. But all the logistics will be honored and an operational flow, as well as Michael said, very importantly, the curfew for sound at the end of each evening. Sorry, Michael, go right ahead.
Which is appreciated. I'm going to interrupt you. This is Justine speaking. A quick second. So basically, it's exactly what you guys would do when you'd have your drive-in, you know, but it's more space because you're taking up more space because you need to be socially distanced. Tell me about this dock entrance again. What is this? Because there's some, you're not on a lower level. You're not going to the lower level for the dock entrance, right?
No, that's just an opening for people to get to the dock. You know, there's more of those wooden floating docks over there, and that's the little staircase that gives you access to that. So we won't block that.
Okay, so you're expecting people to be coming from the water? No.
No, we're
No.
not.
Okay.
You never know.
Yeah, well, yeah, that would be nice, but no, you're talking about, yeah, okay, thank you.
Right. Yeah, and we've got just a 15-foot pathway per the fire department that we have to keep there running through the site. That's why there's a gap that runs through it. All right. Okay, cool. Let's go to the next page because we're not taking up that full footprint for our entire duration there. During the morning hours, if we're not doing a movie, we don't want to block the whole plaza. We don't want to have that detour the entire time. There's no need to. So at the end of each night after 10 p.m., we will stack all of those chairs and put them closer to the water, tie them down, get them out of the way so people can walk freely back and forth. But what you're seeing right now would be a footprint that is there the entire time.
So that makes sense. I'm going to interrupt on this slide here for a quick second to just, not that you have to speak, but Nick and Patrick. And I guess, I don't know if anyone is on here, but from Brookfield, during this time, I think it's going to be really important, and especially when the movies are going on, to stop bicycles from going through, at least not riding through, because there's just going to be no space on the upper level for bikes to go through too, as well as down here. So I just throw that out to you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And we could put a sign certainly that says bicyclists must dismount. You may already have those there, but we're happy to add something like that. I've seen them do that too. Okay.
Hey, Michael.
Just a dismount zone as it is, so we'll make sure that we just have the appropriate folks aware that.
Yeah, exactly, because it's just going to get crowded, and
Yeah.
we do have signs, and people sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's not really a big deal, but I think it might be, especially when the movies are going on. It will be a big deal, and it might be a big deal even in this picture right here. This where there's less space. But even with that, most people don't go there. But I don't want to interrupt you guys, so go ahead.
Sure. And Michael, I'm so sorry if I could insert one more thing on the public access version. Justine, for you and others, again, who might be familiar with what we've done in the past, one significant difference with the technology here is, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, this is not an inflatable screen that requires darkness for front screen projection. This is a high-res, state-of-the-art LED screen, which is going to be a sharper, crisper image. It's going to take up a much smaller, streamlined footprint in terms of look and feel. You won't see a big inflatable thing blowing on the water there. And it also allows us as a festival to program a little longer, to be able to do stuff. We can start at 4. We don't have to wait to start at 6 or 7 or whenever night falls. It allows us to do a little more programming, which of course we are taking advantage of on the weekends to offer great content for the neighborhood. Michael, anything to add to that?
I just wanted to say that we will, of course, have, working with Brookfield and our own security, 24-hour security on the site, to make sure everything is secure there. Yes, we will have a high wind action plan, even though it's not an inflatable screen, which, we would still be concerned about high winds, for the chairs and the screen. So we're taking all of that into consideration. And I think we can move on to the next site and come back with questions if anybody needs. All right, this is the plaza outside of Pier A, the concrete walkway. So what we're activating on here are 4 sponsored tents that will be placed close along the curved planter, and we won't be blocking any pedestrian access around this. This will just be 4 sponsored tents. There may be some stanchions in front of them that, if we need to line a few people up, in case there's, more than the capacity inside those tents. But, with this footprint is what it is there, it wouldn't be blocking anything. All right. And just the timeline on the Pier A Plaza over here on the top left. So this would be from June 9 through 20, Monday through Friday from noon to 9, and then on Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. All right.
And when you say sponsors, what is I recall in the past, American Express was a big sponsor of this. But I mean, I'm assuming that's what that means. And then they're going to have information there, or what are they, or?
Yeah. I don't have all the details yet what we'll actually be activating, but AT&T is a presenting sponsor. They may have some, maybe there's a TV screen in there that's simulcasting from someplace. Maybe there's, again, information about the festival. sponsor product or a
But
sampling.
not selling tickets here. The tickets are they
No,
online?
no in-person sales. It'll all be online, or you'll be directed to buy on your phone. We want to minimize contact.
Justine, I'm just going to jump in really quick. Hi, everyone. This is Lucian, District Manager. We have some questions coming in through the chat. I just want to encourage everyone to press that hand raise button. And then when Justine feels like this presentation is moved through enough, she'll start recognizing members of the public and of the committee for questions. So please, we want to hear your questions. Please raise your hand.
Thanks so much, Lucian. And for those of you who can't raise their hand, please text Lucian to say you can't raise your hand. I know Robin Forrest is in the attendee list, and you can't move her over, Lucian, which is one thing. But if you
That's
can't, I
correct.
know she's got a question. But how many more slides are there? And then 'cause I don't want to interrupt you. I'm bad enough that I'm interrupting you.
No. I appreciate the questions, live and in it all. I think we just have one more slide, right? Speaking of contactless ticketing, our COVID protocols, this is just a short summary of them. We will follow CDC guidance, OSHA, New York State and city guidelines and regulations. Capacity limits and social distancing will be enforced. We keep 6 feet apart, people who are waiting online, but also sitting and watching.
And contact tracing is good.
Contact tracing is in place. We'll be sanitizing each of the chairs as well in between events. And also, we'll have a checklist of regular cleaning that happens backstage and any other high touch points like microphones and such. And then, robust staff daily check-in protocols, health screenings, temperature checks, and all staff wearing PPE. And guests will have to wear masks while entering the event site.
Will you all have your own security to help enforce the mask wearing if it's necessary, or are you looking to Brookfield and/or Allied to do that?
That would, I guess that's a discussion we'll have with Brookfield, and all the other sites. It's our security, so we still have to have a conversation with them where that balance of security is. But
hopefully you're not going to get too much pushback, but you don't know.
No, we'll always have extra masks on hand in case people don't show up. We want to be polite. We don't want to cause a stir, of course. But our security teams have plenty of experience with that. And I think this is our last slide. There might be a happy logo after this.
Yeah. All right.
So Justine, can I ask a quick question about the layout really quick?
Yes.
Everyone, in case I missed anything about supplemental bathroom capacity for the event, can you just kind of point out where additional supplemental bathrooms will be placed?
Yeah, so we've been advised by Brookfield Place that based on the capacity, we do not need to supply additional restrooms because we're only at 376 people. So those people will use the restrooms in Brookfield Place. We do have backstage, we do have 2 porta potties for talent or staff that are working.
Okay, well, wonderful, thank you.
And they'll be placed someplace in this backstage, obviously here in the portion where
Yes,
pedestrian.
yeah, those 2 little boxes with the swing door open.
Got it. Perfect. All right, Tammy, you had your hand up. Do you still want to speak? If not, I will go to Robin and then the community.
Nope, keep going.
All right, Robin, Lucian, and then I see Taylor has raised her hand. And so Robin first, then Taylor, and then other people who have asked you for questions. Lucian, just unmute them as you will.
You got it. Robin, you're unmuted.
Yeah. Peter Downing, so nice to see you after so many years. I was involved in the very first festival, so.
Happy anniversary, Robin.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy. I just had a couple of questions more about the logistics. I appreciate the 10 o'clock curfew on noise. I know you're going to break down each night. Is that going to be associated with noise there
Michael's only going to be striking chairs and pushing them off to the side. So I cannot promise there might not be a low level thud of wooden chairs or whatever being pushed together. But in terms of sound and PA systems and everything else, and I see Michael shaking his head, the plan is that we know that 10 o'clock is pull the plug for sound. I can speak, Robin, to, what our experiences were in the early years, and all those years we did the drive-in there. It was a huge concern for residents in the area, and we acknowledge that and we understand it very well, which is why we're being.
But it was only 3 nights at the time.
Correct.
This is a little bit longer. Just be mindful that there are large residential buildings just to the south, and noise travels because of the water and all that stuff. So please be considerate of the neighbors. I appreciate the sound systems going off, but ambient noise really travels. So I would just ask that you be mindful and considerate of the neighbors. Brookfield and Battery Park City proper don't always have the same ideas about what's best for the community. So I would implore you to remember that it's a residential community as well. And good luck. It's great that you're going to be here.
Oh, thanks so much, Robin. We hear you loud and clear. If I may, Justine, at some point in follow-up, and maybe Lucian, you can help us with this, we want to, once more detailed information comes in about the schedule and availability and how it all works, obviously we're going to put the word out across all outlets, but if there are specific recommended, within the buildings or the tenants or on your site, please let us know moving forward as we get closer to festival, where the best places would be for us to post all the operating information and hours and things, because we really want to minimize questions. We want to be very proactive in communicating to the community right there. So would love to do that in a follow-up with you if we can.
Peter, that's a really great thought. I would just say right off the bat, I would ask you to work with Nick to make sure the building managers and the surrounding residential developments receive that information to pass along to residents. And then we'll be happy to include that information in our weekly newsletter. And so here's my plug, everyone. Please sign up for the newsletter and you'll get lots of really important information. So that we'll be happy to include that, and we can also tweet it and put it on Facebook.
Fantastic. Good.
And Peter, I think you saw, if you were paying attention in the chat, there was a link to the broadsheet. You could do that there. And Carl Glassman from the Tribeca Trib is in the attendee section. He would also be a place where you could present information, and I don't know if it's advertising or news. News I suppose is free versus advertising that's not. But feel free to contact them both and anybody else who you can think of. Those are the names I recognize.
We appreciate that, Justine. Hello, Carl, if you're out there. It's a pleasure to be. It's like Old Home Week, kids.
Yeah,
We're gonna get t-shirts for everybody.
Right. And then I guess the other thing that I just wanted to say before I push this over to Taylor is with setting up and breaking down. I know we talked offline before the meeting about you're going to be aware of the noise for the community and in terms of keeping it down within the different hours, but it sounds like you're totally aware. I don't believe there's been issues in the past, so not good. This is going to work out well. And also keeping in touch with us so that we can, in the middle of it all with the 11 days, if on day 2 there's a problem with something, if we can talk to somebody and know who to reach out to, if people reach out to us to say, hey, there's an issue. It would be really lovely to have someone to say, hey, this is a problem, because you guys are responsive.
No, we appreciate that, Justine. Michael, I think you'll back me up here, and I'll let you respond as well. But to Robin's point, when we did this for 10 to 12 or more years, we did it pretty much just for 3 nights, the second weekend of the festival. No, sorry, first weekend of the festival. And we did have a pretty strong chain of command with our team. So again, in follow-up, in addition to where can we make sure we're providing the most amount of information for people to know what's going on and how they can be part of that, also who, if a complaint comes in, who it goes to on your end and how it gets to us. Let's talk a little kind of chain there, if you will. So for Michael's sake, running the site, it can be pretty clear. We are totally committed to being responsive. Let's try to put a little process in place for that.
That's perfect.
Yeah, that would be great. And of course, we'll have the same people working there for the duration. So, they'll be there responsive, of course.
No, that's cool. And Michael, will you be there too as well, or no?
I'm going to be at many of the sites, so I won't be locked down to a specific site.
And let me throw this out that I think at Pier A, depending on the noise factor, there are residential buildings across the street. I mean, I know it's Pier A, and then but you've got residential buildings across, and I do not know how the sound travels or doesn't travel. So I like that you're
Yeah.
closing down at 9 o'clock, but those are all things to be careful of.
Yeah, and I don't see this being a, this being a noise generator, this site. So
Yeah, I would agree, but I have to throw that out there, and I don't know that anybody's here. Okay,
Appreciate it.
Lucian, if you don't mind unmuting Tammy again and then going to Taylor. Tammy has one follow-up question. Not Tammy, Robin, sorry.
Robin, you're good to go.
Okay, thanks. Just one more thing. In terms of outreach, the complex just to the south is Gateway Plaza. Lucian can give you my email address. I'm on the executive committee of the Tenant Association.
Good point.
I think it would be really useful for our residents to be aware of what's going on because we're 1,700 units and it's a big population. So Lucian, if you could take care of that with Peter, that would be great.
Robin, that sounds great. And Lucian, I'm going to say I'm really old school here,
Got
but remember flyers? Remember when we
Yes, oh, I like
so
flyers.
I know it's COVID and all that
So
stuff,
quaint.
but like in addition to, websites and feeds and tweeting and all that, if truly we get down to the point where on the key bulletin boards or at the entrances to some of these places, even if the flyer says, go to the website or go wherever, we're open to all that as well. We want to be as proactive as we can be, making sure that the neighborhood knows what's happening and where they can find out more detail.
Yeah, well, we may be able to do something in terms of our communication with residents also. So, yeah.
That's a great idea. Yeah, flyers are good.
And we'll be happy to work with you.
Yep.
Great. Thank you so much.
And Peter, electronic as well as hanging them, because I think Nick could have them placed in some, they've got these kiosks, for lack of a better word, where they can put the flyers on the inside.
That's great.
Kiosks. Yep.
Yeah. Taylor, you're up.
Hi, good evening. Thank you all so much. This is so exciting. Probably because the last time I recall going to this, I was a kid. My first question is it free?
The shift this year has been to, now keep in mind, we're not doing anything indoors, right? So every single offering for the festival this year is outdoors across the boroughs. And those offerings are a blend of free screenings across the boroughs mixed in with ticketed screenings. I will say this particular screening, the designated area that's COVID safe and all the protocols you just saw, will be ticketed. So that getting into one of those pod seats is a cost. That's not free to just get down there. However, as you all know from the area and how this drive-in played out over the years, there's plenty of other space. Thank you for the drawing, Arnold. Depending on crowds and flows and the draw, you can be having a wonderful cup of coffee or drink at any one of the wonderful establishments or be up on the terraced areas. And quite frankly, you'll get just as good a view, if not a little better, because you're raised up than the folks who are actually down on the floor seating. But that 360 capacity is ticketed.
And I will just point
I
out,
assumed so much. I assumed as much. Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sure.
We do have a variety of free events all across the city as well. So even the free events are ticketed, and that is how contact tracing works. So that even if it's a free event, you still have to sign up, and so we can have that contact tracing information.
Sorry, I had another question. Thank you. And I was curious about like waste control and like litter and drinks in that area. And I had one last question because sorry, I got muted. So.
All right, thank you, Taylor. We are working with the Downtown Alliance. We are working on setting up a call with them to talk about the finer details of that. But whether it's them or if we're supplying sanitation staff and extra garbage pails or recycling pails, that is certainly within the operation for sure.
Okay, cool. And the last question was, so I mean, I remember some of these outdoor events, and like you said, there's ways to gather like outside of the perimeter. Are you guys looking at that? I guess it's Michael, or I don't know who's going to be on the site, but are you guys considering yourselves only responsible for what's happening within the perimeter? I guess that's the way I'm
Just
going to
like,
phrase that question.
sure. This is a fair question. Whenever we do events, like if we're doing a movie premiere with a red carpet, and everybody knows a celebrity is going to walk that carpet, people are going to congregate across the street. The city and with Battery Park looks at us as responsible to deal with that. So so if there are people that are gathering on the outside of the perimeter and it's getting a little out of control, that'll fall to the security, either Brookfield or our security are working together as a team to deal with that, and to make sure people aren't congregating in crowds that are larger than what's legally allowed, what just feels unsafe. So absolutely, that's a very valid question, and it is something we would deal with.
I guess I wasn't necessarily asking that, the crowd be managed. I was just curious what to expect. Just also make sure that like there isn't unnecessary like force or activity just in like, people trying to hang out. Because that can also be and disruptive to the community if there's like a lot of like move along and you're like, I'm in my backyard. What do you mean? Like, that can also be uncomfortable. So it's, I guess, a nice balance, but good to know that we can talk to you about that if we do hear complaints. Like I was just, walking by, but they mistook me. And if people feel kind of like, pushed along in a way that wasn't appropriate.
I understand what you're saying. And the security companies that we work with, it's kind of more like a concierge feeling of security where a customer service oriented security, and like a Disneyland kind of feel where it's not about being confrontational. That's the last thing you want to do if something escalates to a point like that. But it's more about being nice and most of the people in this world are reasonable people. So
awesome.
Yeah,
thank you so much. I guess the last question is, you guys are doing like contact tracing. Do you have any protocol in place if, like, God forbid, you hear there's a big COVID outbreak or something among staff, or I don't know. This is, like you said, the first time we're doing this, but I was just wondering if you have like contingency plans or like safeguard measures in place just to protect all of us from this devastating pandemic. And that's my last question. Really appreciate you all. Thank you.
I guess is the question about like people working the event or the audience? I guess that's a tough one.
Working the event is what I think.
I guess both. Like, would our community board here, if God forbid there is a big, you hear there's a huge outbreak or an unusual number of people that have attended and signed in with tickets got COVID, will we ever hear that, or will that just get added to the general statistics, like citywide and zip code wide?
I guess the bad news is we'll hear about it eventually, but I think that based on your question, Taylor, it makes sense to want to hear about it more in real time so that people in the community can protect themselves too. So hopefully it's not what's it called, like a super spreader event, because you're taking precautions and people have been vaccinated, and there's we're going to hope for all that. But
right.
I guess the transparency would be really important.
Yeah. So, for example, I know like in Brookfield Place, when you want to, eat a sandwich from the district, that you have to like get your temperature checked and just to be able to sit in that stanchioned area in the middle inside over there. So, like, let's if our guests are using your restrooms, on a certain day of the screenings, and we find out that someone got COVID on that day, and that via New York State contact tracing, we would have to contact all those people, and we would let the venue know, for example, so that if anybody who went into one of those areas that has contact tracing, they would then further contact those people. So I think there is already a system in place for that. Brookfield Place being the venue.
And Taylor, we brought back up the slide that Michael stepped you through. All of these protocols is what Michael will have his team manage on site, both for guests who come and are seated in the event area, as well as all staff. I can tell you personally, having been to the Tribeca building, several occasions now since last year, there's no one I've seen in an office setting who's more mindful, more strict, more structured than the Tribeca Film Center, the headquarters for the festival. So I'm confident that Michael will lead the team consistently with these protocols that are laid out here, and also partner them with Brookfield, as Michael just shared, for all the protocols that are being observed there for food court and other places.
And of course, we're going to have a COVID safety supervisor on each site. So that'll be a person assigned on that specific to this location.
Thank you. I think that was a really great questions, Taylor, and really important to pay attention to this stuff. And I guess what I would say to Nick and to Patrick, and I don't think anyone here is from Brookfield, but transparency is important. This is not about pointing fingers and saying, oh, you know, you're bad for getting COVID. No, it's about knowledge, and because knowledge is power to protect yourself. So having that out there, and there's a way to then disseminate that is safe to the people who are sick and safe to everybody who's involved. So whatever that may be, we'll figure it out. But thank you.
And just one little quick addition to that is that I know that and I don't know the name or the group that they're with, but Tribeca is working with the same people that are trying to come up with these guidelines for the state as with this festival. So those same people we are working with, they are consulting on this project. So we've got the same information coming. We've got that very high level, well thought through information.
Thank you all. I really appreciate it. Thank you for answering the questions. Thanks for working on this. And this is a really special event to me personally, having grown up here. So really excited, and hope we can be safe. And I know we're gonna put work to do that. So appreciate you all. Have a good.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much for that. Justine, I think you're muted.
Robin, I don't see your hand anymore. Text me if you want to speak, but otherwise, I think this is great. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Justine, if I may, Robin, thanks for your email in the chat. I don't know how to get back to you privately, but you will hear from me, I promise. Thanks for sending your email through.
Perfect.
You're welcome. So if there are any questions moving forward, please do let us know, and we'll gather those. And if you want to come back a little closer in when schedules and such are together, happy to do that. And particularly keen to kind of get a communication chain in place, kind of a confirmation of where we can get the word out once the schedules are nailed, how we can best help you communicate that, and then connect all of you players to Michael's operational team on site. So it's perfectly clear when there's an issue, who to go to, who to call, not Ghostbusters, but Michael and team to follow through as needed.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
Thanks
We really
for having
appreciate
us.
it.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And yeah, let's keep this going. And I look forward to seeing you on site.
Sounds good. Us as well.
Right.
Safely, of course, and with a mask.
Of course,
Yes.
with a mask. Yes. Exactly. All right. Thank
for
you
your
so
time
much.
tonight. We appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, Lucien. So now I guess next is Maureen Corrado from RGY Marina, the schedule for the 2021 season.
Maureen is with us. Maureen,
Yes.
you are up. Do you have anything that you wish to share on the screen, or are you just going to report? We may have to give her a second to come back and unmute.
I see her face, but I don't, but you're muted, Maureen.
How's that? Can you hear me
There
now?
we go.
Yes,
There
I
we
can.
go.
Thank you.
No, I do not have any slides. I just have a brief presentation, and I welcome all questions. I want to thank
Perfect.
everybody for the
Perfect.
invitation to be on the agenda tonight. On behalf of Mike Rivier from IGY Marinas and North Cove Sailing. For those of you who have never met me, this is my first meeting. My name is Maureen Corrado, also known as Moochie. That's how I am known on the docks. And I am the sailing director at North Cove Sailing. The sailing school and the marina work very closely together. So I'm here to give updates on what we anticipate to be a full, robust sailing, cruising, can't wait to get back on the water season. On the IGY Marina side, the marina's returning to mostly fully normal operations. A lot of improvements have been made to the docks, to the fenders around, to protect the boats safety-wise, to protect the guests. Most of the commercial vessels, the historic tall ships, are all returning. They're all booking their slips. The visiting yachts, both the short and the long-term vessels, are also coming back. So you'll see a lot of activity in the marina. We will be on the sailing school side. We will be renovating the south kiosk to make that, I don't know, the north kiosk is mostly the IGY. You'll see it says IGY Marina on both of the kiosks, but the north kiosk is mostly where that's where the dockmaster is and the dock hands to help the larger boats, you know, come in and out. But the south side, that's going to be where we base our where our Sailing 101, our lessons, people coming in, where the community sells. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to look really good. We're working with the marketing team from Brookfield to make a very nice presentation in that corner. For those of you on the sailing school side, the components of the sailing school are the obviously teaching, bringing in the community is and introducing people to sailing is what we do best. Our programs for the adult learning is Sailing 101, which is our basic keelboat operations, and then Sailing 2 is about performance, increasing your performance skills. We have racers, how to use the spinnaker, what to do on the boat. Primary is our Kid Sail Camp. My phone is just ringing off the hook with parents who can't wait to get their kids back into school. We have returning kids. I like to call them our alumni kids. And we have a lot of new kids coming on board as well. Our Kid Sail Camp is a 9-week program going from June 28th to I think right before the last week in August, right before everybody, if school is kicking back in, I don't know.
Yeah. Can people sign up 1 week at a time, or do they have to sign up for the full 9 weeks for the kids?
Oh, no, 1 week at a time. It's Monday through Friday. I will say, Justine, that my heart was breaking because in the 19, the kid was, oh my God, my kid had such a great time. They're standing in front of my desk. Can you put them on another week? And I said, I have a waiting list. I can't. So I am recommending, and we are giving a discount for to encourage this for families to put their kids in for 2 weeks in a row. And we're also giving a discount to encourage, because, you know, people got hit a little hard by COVID if you have 2 siblings in the same household. So we're giving a discount for that as well. A lot of parents are calling me and they're saying, my son's going to sign up. I'm going to get his friend from school to sign up. We'd like them all on one boat, because obviously the concern is how many kids you're having, how are you following the CDC protocols. And again, we're going to be wearing the mask and sanitizing and following everything, the social distancing, you know, with the classroom, the way the kids will be separated. So that's, you know, we've been working on it a lot. We spent a lot of time, even though we were not able to have a season last year, looking at how we would be prepared to open now. The membership is coming back. We do racing on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we have a skipper development program for anyone that, let's say you take the weekend and learn to sail the 101. Then the way that you continue to learn is that you become a member of the club. Then we have a mentorship program within the club where you get taken out by skippers that love to teach, and everybody started somewhere, you know. So it's good, and I'm very excited because I spent a lot of time on the phone last year, you know, just not being able to open. So it's nice again, even to hear how people are getting together now. It's nice to see you. Everyone can't wait to get back. What else?
That sounds wonderful. That sounds wonderful. It sounds very promising. That's great.
It really is. It really is. So I think I covered. Oh, we also offer coastal navigation, and we're doing a lot of it is to allow the membership to feel like they own the boat. So a skipper can take their family out for the day. They can go out and anchor. We never permitted that before. So we're doing some things just to encourage different types of cruising situations with the boat.
What do you have to do to be a skipper? I mean, besides know how to sail.
Yeah. Well, over the winter, we have 2 of our Commodores spent a lot of time analyzing, because if you're the skipper of the boat, you're responsible for the people on the boat.
Yeah.
So you have to be a higher level, and you have to be vetted, and you have to go through a certain checklist. It's not a physical test, but generally it is a one-on-one with an instructor who has to sign off on you that you understand all the safety protocols, the man overboard, everything that's necessary to operate a boat in a safe manner. And
that makes sense.
Yeah, safety is a priority, whether it's the kids camp, whether it's the adults, whoever it is. Community sales, people are signing up on, we're excited to do that. A lot of families come on the community sales, and then they decide they want to test that to see, and it's a great way for them to test whether the kid is going to like it, the parents are going to like it. It's a good thing. It's a good representation.
That sounds lovely. Any questions, or are you finished? First of all,
I am finished. Yeah.
All
I
right.
just, if anybody has anything, I'm happy.
Any questions? Tammy, I thought I saw your hand up, but wait, did it disappear? Yes, I do see your hand up. Tammy, you're up.
I'm here. So
Hello.
hi, welcome. It's so nice to see you. Thank you for coming tonight.
My pleasure.
I have a couple of questions. One, for the sailing school, what kind of outreach are you doing to the schools for promotion, or do you not feel you need that?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question, because I've been approached last year. Prior to COVID, I was approached by Le Mans School, and we're actually talking with Regis and Stuyvesant last year. We had a program for them. I'm actually putting those heads coaches together, and we are looking to start for the first time a varsity league. These schools want to add sailing. They've come to us to ask us, and I put together a program last year. We're going to kick it off hopefully this year, where we want to have at least one team from each of those schools, and then have a league. So as far as outreach to the schools, Brookfield does a lot of our marketing. They're in charge of our social media, our outreach, our Facebook page, all those kinds of things. Does that answer your question?
Sort of.
It
Go
kind
ahead.
of not.
You're probably going to ask
because
the same questions I am, so go ahead.
I was actually asking about outreach to the public schools,
Sure.
for the middle schools that are in the neighborhood that, obviously aren't,
Right.
they're not following you on Twitter. This is, the PTAs and things like that. And so it's active outreach to talk to the parent coordinators to understand, programming and options that they could share with their communities.
Sure. I will take that back to Mike and see how we can address that.
And
I have a
would
second question for you.
wait.
Sorry,
Before
Justine.
no, it's okay. I'm going to interrupt you because I would want to ask that. So you've mentioned what sounds to me varsity sounds like high school. You've got Stuyvesant, you've got Regis, and you've got Lamont. There are also a number of other public high schools that I'm aware of. Millennium is one.
Yep.
There's
There are 2 CTE high schools as well as, the Harbor School in our
the Harbor
district.
School, yeah, who may be very much interested in maybe forming a larger group of sailing. And then besides having the after school or whatever it is sailing program, you now all of a sudden have like a competition going on.
Yeah, I just want to stand corrected. None of these other schools that I did not approach those schools.
They approached you. No,
they approached us. So, and in order to make something like that happen, as you know, there's lots of, and I'm seeing it, there's lots of red tape that the coach has to get involved, the counselor has to get involved. It's not just, so in order to kick that off, we're going to be lucky if we get one of the teams to come back, and if Stuyvesant, one of the teams to start, and if Stuyvesant comes back. So plus the problem is the school year. The school year ends in June, so they're not going to come for the summer. So what we're doing is go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I throw it out. So what will that cost? Will there be there will be a fee to the children?
Oh, yes.
There's a fee.
Yeah. It's all relative to what we would normally charge for anyone that comes.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's in a development stage, I should say. But it's not exclusive in any way. It's not exclusive in any way. And I take phone calls all the time. In fact, I got one today from a mom that wants to know how her group of kids, teenagers, 15, 16, 17, can be trained to be, they cannot be trained to be instructors because they're too young. But let's say they go on vacation or they go somewhere and they want to help teach sailing. they're not, they have to get basic keelboat certification. That's all we can offer them. And which she's going to get back to me. She's taking that back to her parents association.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tammy, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Secondarily, I wanted to just check, when IGY filled in the RFP for the marina, became the operator, there is a portion in there which talks about enjoyment of the marina. And, you know, that operators cannot cause or permit any action or condition that would be hazardous or would unreasonably interfere with the rights, peace, or enjoyment of any person in the marina or Battery Park City.
Okay.
Objectionable noise, exhaust, impacts from light and vessels, etc. are not permitted. I ask very specifically because we did have an incident last fall with a boat that had speakers and loud music playing and people screaming at people walking by, including the chair of this committee, obscenities. And it took a very long time to try and figure out what the rules and regs were. Unfortunately, the rules and regs are really pretty strong and clear when it comes to that.
Of course.
And it says, except while boarding, no motors may be operated or loud music played while boats are docked. This was screaming loud music, people
For
yelling.
hours. For
And
hours.
I am trying to understand what protocols IGY has in place to prevent that from happening again.
Well, here's the thing. I am quite confident that, as I say, IGY Marina is one port and North Coast Sailing is this part. I'm certainly going to take all of these things back to Mike Riviere, who manages that. I also, we work hand in hand together. We know that the people that are working the docks. That situation should not have gone on. I don't think they would let it go on. So I'm surprised, I'm saddened that it did. But I will certainly bring it up that this is a major concern that this particular incident occurred from last year.
Yeah.
You don't know did you happen to know the name of the boat or anything?
I can tell you the day so you guys can check, you can check your,
you know that?
Oh,
Sure.
yeah, no, I know the day, because yeah, it was 9/11, 2020.
It was 9/11, 2020?
Yes, it was 20, no,
Correct.
it was 20.
Okay.
This is, and this was,
What was it called?
On the south side, the
Oh.
north side?
It was on the south side of Marina.
And the name of the boat was the Deplorables, Matthew was telling me.
Yep.
The Deplorables.
Oh,
okay.
Correct. They were there with political purpose. I don't care about their politics. You can love who you want, support who you want. My care was the fact that they were blasting loud music and screaming at people who were walking by.
Terrible behavior.
Correct. And we were told that there is limited things that could be done, which upon looking at the RFP and the agreement with North Cove Marina, it's actually not true. So
I will certainly, again, I have not seen the RFP. I will go back and ask for it. Sensitivity to the neighborhood. I am here representing an organization that I am proud to work for, that safety comes first. We recognize that we live we operate in a lovely neighborhood. And I would say for the 3 years that I've been here, that's probably an anomaly. It's probably.
I am hoping it is, but I certainly would hate for that to happen again this year on 9/11. I would hate for it to happen on any day, whether it's 9/11 or any day.
I would like to do the same thing that the young lady did. I would like to offer you my email, my personal contact information. We so understand the neighborhood that we're operating in, and we are very cognizant of not allowing that kind of behavior.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It did happen, but again, I think Lucian, you have my email, yes? Because I can be that I can be that concierge service for you, so to speak, for things that are happening at the marina. If
I appreciate that. Understand I'm not looking for a personal phone number. I'm just looking for a set of rules and guidelines to be enforced for the voters.
I
Same
will
as it
bring
would
that
be
on
for the people who live
as
here.
sure. And as we are starting to bring back new employees, new dock hands, I will make sure to bring that back to Mike Riviere that this was a concern.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a lovely night.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And Tammy, thank you for bringing that up too, because that's a good point. Anybody else have something to say? That's still Tammy. I see nothing in the attendees. So thank you so much. We appreciate the update, Maureen. And
my pleasure.
Lucian will send you some information. I just put in the chat that I can't send to you directly, but he can send it to you.
That's great. And the 300 Vesey is my office. So
cool.
we are two doors down from the Laughing Man Cafe. So at any time, come by and just say hello. I'm at the desk often, most of the time.
Very cool. I'd run by there. I can't say every day. I should do it every day, but
well, stop in and say hello. We'll have coffee.
There you go. Perfect.
Justine,
Thank
I'll
you.
connect you and Maureen via email.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lucian.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Good night. Thank you so much. And thanks for sticking on the call for so long.
No problem. No problem. My pleasure.
All right. Public seating at the Winter Garden update. That's our next thing.
That's me.
That's
So,
you. All right, Lucian, you talk.
A neighborhood tipster let me know that there was concerns about the Winter Garden, which is effectively a privately owned public space, and that there was kind of a non-permeability to it, that it looked like only people who could eat food were being permitted to sit in there. And so I called Alex over Brookfield, and he said he'd take a look. And he said that based on that, he made sure that it was clear that anyone is allowed to sit there. So I just want to say to everyone listening that Brookfield Place Winter Garden is public space. I encourage everyone who wishes to sit indoors to do so. There is a temperature check. There is a sign-in sheet for contact tracing. Brookfield feels that that's necessary because there are people eating in the same space. So, for whatever guidance they've gotten, they're kind of treating it like a restaurant in that sense. But there is nothing that keeps someone from going in there without food or purchasing anything. So I encourage everyone to utilize that space whenever they wish, whenever the operating hours are permitting to do so. So with that, if there's any further questions, please let me know and I can turn those around. But I think effectively, it with just the addition of the temperature check and the contact tracing, it should be essentially the same thing. Let me know if that's your experience.
Lucian, when did this happen with you? Like weeks ago, or did you hear about this?
I called him I heard about it a number of weeks ago. I want to say at least 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I put in a request for more information, and then I followed up, and that's when he was able to tell me that they had made sure that there was nothing stopping people from going in. I didn't see it with my own eyes, so I can't tell you how different it is. But he did say that right now the policy is there's nothing that keeps someone from going in without purchasing something. So I want someone to tell me if that's not the case, and then I'll make sure to follow up.
Go ahead, Jeff Galloway. Go ahead, because
I suspect what may have happened is that the seats had been removed from the Winter Garden because of COVID for many, many months. And relatively recently, they were put back in, and there was police tape, kind of around that area restricting access. And I suspect they figured, well, we'll have limited access for the people who are eating here, and didn't realize kind of the message that was sending. And it sounds, I'm glad, Lucian, that you've cleared it up, because it sounds like they are probably resolving it correctly, but I suspect it was kind of a transition out of pandemic issue as opposed to some sort of nefarious policy.
Because I don't know how far back, I'm trying to figure out the dates, which is, I'm trying to verify with Matthew, but he's piping up and telling me now that I want to say it was in March, so it certainly was
the time when they
maybe around March 15th or something. He was there with one of my mom's caregivers, and he was waiting for a COVID result, whatever, from that little, the COVID place, walked into the Winter Garden because it was cold outside and wanted to go sit down. And they said, do you have a receipt from the place, from a restaurant or whatever else, or a business within this establishment? He said, no, we're just going to want to wait here and sit. And they said, you have to leave. And the same at Hudson Eats upstairs. They also did the same thing. Now, this is in March, so I don't know what's going on now. But if anybody has any information now, because that's not right. I hear what you're saying, Jeff, and it was confusion, and that's fine. And maybe it all happened the same day. I just asked Matthew.
Just to be clear, I wasn't saying that it was confusion on a particular day. I'm saying that they were transitioning back to opening, and thankfully Lucian called them and
maybe
reminded them that it's a
yeah.
pop, and they really need to let it. They can't just open it for customers. They have to open it for
Yes, contact tracing is fine. Asking for information to know who's in and out, that makes sense to me. That's fair. But to prohibit people from sitting down, that's not fair. But again, I don't know the dates. And Matthew says he's not the whistleblower. So somebody else. Bob, you want to say something? Go ahead.
I just want to say a small thing, and that is that I actually was denied entrance a few times with friends wanting to sit there, and also being exhausted from time to time on the way home. But I accepted that because it just seemed like, I understand. At that time I accepted it. I think they should have a sign up that says it's open to the general public, just because it makes sense, and that just clarifies the question. And so that's my addition here.
Yeah, but that's not okay. You should be able to sit down. I mean, again, as long as you're socially distanced and whatever else, and it's not too crowded or whatever. But again, if you're exhausted, give you a seat and let you sit someplace.
There's no bathrooms or seats in the city of New York. That's just how it is. But anyway, I accepted it. But now I would insist that there be a sign there so that everyone simply knows that they're allowed there. Just like at Pier A, there are signs that say anyone can sit there.
That might be the good answer, is to put signs. But again, maybe it's resolved so they don't bother you.
Well,
Do you want to say something? Kathy, do you want to say something or no?
Oh, sure. This is the second iteration of this. And at least initially, when we were desperate to send any kind of business at all to restaurants, it looked like a great idea to get a few more customers in there for everybody and a place to sit down. But I think most people will not assume, as Bob says, that you could even approach and ask unless there's something large and sign-like to let them know that it's okay. And it sounds like it's getting resolved, and that's good. And we all want to support the restaurants as well. But it's a long stretch if you're walking and you're not well, and there does need to be some places where people can obviously take a rest.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And yeah, if it's resolved, I'm happy.
It sounds to me as if, Lucian, we're going to need to ask for them to put up a sign that says public seating, period.
Because there used to be signs there, actually, if I recall. It had a little sign like away from the trees, by the window.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. If we could do that, Lucian, maybe follow up, and then I'll make a point of trying to go in and check it out and see what's going on now. Because maybe it says it, and God only knows. But
yeah, and I don't think that there is a sign now, but I do encourage everyone to go and try it out, just to verify that what they're telling me is it's easy to do without me going there. I had to take
Yeah,
your
no,
word
we're
for it,
here.
but I'd love for y'all to give me a report so I can go back and with more detailed requests for them.
I'll make the effort to go by tomorrow and I'll touch base with you.
Thanks,
And
Justine.
sure, and we'll see, and then other people too, but, all right, cool. Thank you. All right, Nick, maybe you're up. And then before you start, I want to, if anybody's left on here who's sent me things to say. First, I think Betty, I really blew it because we had a lot of people online before and not so many people now, but you wanted me to share information about, well, I'll find it in a minute. About, I want to say, yes, shredathon and textile drop off. Read it and see.
I saw that from the Downtown Alliance today.
Yeah,
Justine. I
Downtown
think it
Alliance
just
on
came in.
Saturday, the 17th, right,
Right.
of April.
Right.
So just being able to process that from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. There'll be a shredding truck that's on Fulton Street, and they'll get rid of your documents, and then wearable collections.
Lucian, if you have that, if you need it, I will send it to you now. Yeah, we'll
Maybe
push
we
it
can
out.
put
But
that
if you
in
want to
our,
put it in a newsletter,
yeah,
I have,
thank you.
the Alliance sent it to
from
me as
Tana?
well. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it'll I've already marked it for the newsletter.
Perfect. No, thank you. And Betty did send that to me, and it took me too long to bring it up, but because we had a lot more people on before. But anyhow, that's great, Betty. Thank you for that. And then Jill Goodkind, who I don't see signed on, but she wanted me to ask, and it's a good question, and I don't know that you'll have an answer.
Go ahead.
But over by Brookfield Place, all the entrances to the Oval Park were blocked. And I took a picture. I ran by there today and took a picture. And it says on the sign, lawn closed for one or more of the following reasons: dormancy, taking root, soil health, irrigation, and maintenance. Can you see that? No, yeah. Can you see let's see what, I made that big. I don't know if you guys can see from the picture.
I see. I can't see the sign, but I see there is a sign. Okay.
There's a sign, yeah. And then she's funny. She also said that the cherry blossoms are white, not pink, and they used to be pink, but that I don't have no answer for.
You can't win them all.
But yeah, you can't win them all, exactly. I don't know what that's about. But in terms of this, I'd love to know if we can get an answer back, Nick, from Brookfield, or Lucian, if we can get an answer back from Brookfield as to why it's closed off.
Yeah, Lucian, I can coordinate
I can
offline. I'm assuming
work
it's
with Nick on
okay.
that. I mean, I can tell you that in Central Park, most of
It's
the
still-
grass areas are closed off for while the grass reestablishes itself, but I'll verify that.
That makes sense. I mean, and to be fair, so is part of Rockefeller Park and different places in Battery Park City, but that had been open for a while. So I'm wondering why they closed it now. And I'm concerned if it's actually because of drainage, because didn't they just do all that work to prevent drainage issues? But again, we don't know the answers. So I'm going to pass off to Nick to have you present, and maybe we could just agree to follow up with the information.
Sure. Okay. Lucian, are you ready? I told Lucian this may be my magnum opus. This might be the Sergeant Peppers of any of the reports I've ever done. I have 16 pages of information here at this late hour, but most of it is new and really useful. So with that, Justine, with your indulgence,
I'll kill
dive
you,
in.
16 pages. Go
It's
ahead.
really good. I mean, look,
glad everyone's sitting down for this.
So am I. It's a work of art. In any event, I'll try and go as quickly as I can. I just wanted to draw your attention to a few of the highlights here. So first off, the real good news is, as we all know, that the vaccine is here, and now anyone who's above the age of 16 in New York can sign up to get a vaccine. You'll see the numbers there in the chart. Total doses administered through today at 11 a.m. was almost 11 million across the state. And if you can see there in New York City, what was really encouraging when I looked at it, at least, was that almost 2 million people, 2 million New Yorkers, New York City residents, have had their complete vaccine delivered. And another 3 million overall have at least one dose. So slowly but steadily we are getting there. And again, this information is all included in my report, along with the links to the state trackers, information about the 3 vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson, of course, being the one-shot vaccine. Also information there about are you eligible, website to track and to vaccination, and how to book an appointment of your own, how to find places that are administering the vaccine, etc. So I will go past that for now. Lucian, if you can go down to page 2, we have the chart that we update each month, which is the percent positivity rates in Battery Park City. The north is very good. The north has been 0% for the better part of the last week. It ticked up to just under 0.5% positive today. The southern part of the neighborhood is stubbornly around 3.5%, still well below what the citywide average is, but a handful of cases, about a dozen or so positive tests over the course of the past 7 days this track. So Battery Park City is still faring well comparatively. The north neighborhood certainly, the south neighborhood a little less so, but still a relatively low percentage considering. So please, everyone, continue to wear your masks, stay socially distant, and look out for one another. As we all know, we've seen a spate of intolerable and infuriating attacks against Asian Americans, not just in New York City, but across the country. We've been doing some outreach as well, just to let everyone know, and for the record, we want it to be known that clearly this hatred has no place in New York City or Battery Park City or in America. So we are looking forward to pressing on and making sure that all our fellow New Yorkers are looked after and taken care of. Obviously, one of the things I wanted to make sure we put in our report is that in addition to obviously calling 911 immediately if you are witnessing someone being attacked or a crime in progress, whatever the nature of the crime is, you can also report hate crimes and bias incidences to the New York State Attorney General, and I have included there the direct email box address and the 800 number. That was also in a newsletter that we blasted out a number of times recently, but as late as yesterday as well. So stop Asian hate. Top of page 3, we've touched on this the past couple of weeks, the past couple of reports, I should say, but we have low-cost rapid COVID testing in Battery Park City, Irish Hunger Memorial, New York City Police Memorial Plaza, and down at Pier A. Hours are 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily, $25 a test. I've done it twice, actually, and it was really convenient. Very, very kind of painless process. Pleased to report that to date, almost 3,800 tests, maybe more so today, but about 3,800 tests across the 3 sites so far, and those sites are in place again until at least the end of April. So if you want to make sure you get tested, you can do so and do so fairly easily and quickly. Keep It Wild, that's the bottom of page 3, top of page 4. The good community board chairman, Tammy Meltzer, was good enough to give us a quote for the release as well, but earlier this week we launched our Keep It Wild public awareness campaign, aimed specifically at reminding folks that Battery Park City is home to any number of wild species who have, through the natural habitat and natural plantings, can feed themselves in Battery Park City. So while it's great to observe and enjoy the wildlife and even do the wildlife census, which I've also linked in this report, there's no need, please, to interact with the wildlife. Playing with them or feeding them, please don't do it. Wildlife can survive on its own, and we just want to make sure folks know that they can come and enjoy Battery Park City and all kind of the wildlife it has to offer, but please do not interact with it. Okay, now, Justine, you just touched on this, so I will mention it as well. A long time coming, bottom of page 4. Battery Park City's lawns will be opening actually for the season next week. So the week of April 12th, you'll start seeing the balance of the lawns across Battery Park City open for the spring and summer and fall. You'll recall we kept 2 of the largest, most popular lawns in Battery Park City open for the duration of the year. So Wagner Park's Terrace and Rockefeller Park's North Lawn have been open throughout, but the balance of the lawns across the neighborhood will be opening next week. So hope to see everyone out there again, of course, at a safe distance and wearing masks.
Top of page 5, the little sneak peek about some of the parks programming coming up. We will have a fuller schedule coming out about mid-month, but we will be restarting some of the programming in Battery Park City's parks, obviously on a limited basis, and with the appropriate health protocols in place. But starting in the beginning of May, we'll start having some classes again out there for kids, adults, seniors, and residents and visitors of all ages. Earth Month is April, as we know. So we have a suite of things coming up and underway for Earth Month to celebrate and commemorate it, including, if you've been to our website recently, a new splash page. So when you first enter bpca.ny.gov, you will land on that page that drives you to some of the particular items of interest of environmental interest. So our sustainability plan, our strategic plan, and our resiliency designs, and going forward, we'll kind of have that tool to be able to direct folks to particular items of interest. The Battery Park City Sustainability Tour is now live on YouTube. Anybody who's interested in some of the wonderful sustainability work we're doing around Battery Park City, from plantings to operations to dog waste composting to regular composting, etc. Really educational video for folks to learn from and enjoy. Coming up on Earth Week, Lucian, I'm on page 6 now. This is just a sneak peek of some of the programs we have going as well. So Tuesday, April 20th, this is a live event, 6:30 to 7:30. It's the Artichoke Dance Company. It's an environmentally sustainable dance troupe, and they will be doing a show on on the Belvedere waterfront on the 20th. So you have to RSVP. It's free to attend, but you have to just reserve your spot if you want to do that, and that's coming up on the 20th. And then we have a couple of other programs. These are just sneak peeks. Earth Week Story with Doug, that's coming up on the 21st. Children's Art on Thursday the 22nd. And then obviously our wildlife survey, which I had referenced already, that's ongoing. You can help contribute to Battery Park City's natural habitat by reporting upon the animals you see and helping us track the types of animals and wildlife that are in Battery Park City. Okay, top of page 8. I'm going fast, Justine. Okay, I'm trying to. Hurricane Maria Memorial, as we know, has been completed in Battery Park City. That was unveiled on March 26th. For those of you from the kind of southern parts of the neighborhood or elsewhere, it's up at the Chamber Street overlook. So at the terminus of Chamber Street overlooking the top of Rockefeller Park, there really is a splendid structure, and I included a couple of pictures there for the benefit of the committee, but really a stunning structure, and that has been completed in the northern part of the neighborhood. Below that, we just had a couple of nice testimonials we received via email and Twitter. One was from a grandmother who now lives in Germany with her 2 grandchildren, but was really complimentary and missing the art in the park that she had attended for years. And another one below that, really thanking Princess McNeil, who's one of our BPC maintenance workers, on the work they do to keep Battery Park City wonderful. Not just the public facilities, but the restrooms in this case specifically. Top of page 9, Lucian, there was another tweet there we got from someone complimenting some of the beauty they saw in South Cove. And I'd like to draw your attention to, at the bottom of page 9, the next Battery Park City blood drive, again, is coming up. Battery Park City, you folks have been heroes with the amount of blood you've given to date. This is, we've done 7 blood drives since the start of the pandemic, starting back in June. This will be our 8th one, and we've collected more than 550 gifts of life donations in that time. Our next blood drive will be May 18th. So I will have a registration page for you all soon, certainly by the time we next get together in early May, but likely between now and then I'll have a link that anyone who's interested can use to sign up and book their slot. Okay, top of page 10. I'm zipping here, Justine, I'm zipping.
You are zipping.
New York City Police Memorial expansion. So we talked about this a little while back. I came up earlier when we discussed it again. So site mobilization to expand the New York City Police Memorial should begin in the coming weeks and scheduled to be complete by September. For those of you who may just be joining us or be unfamiliar with it, this project will expand. It's an unfortunate thing that it needs to be expanded, but it will expand the amount of usable wall that can be used to honor and memorialize the names of those officers who have given the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. So that project will begin in the coming weeks, and like I said, should be complete by September.
So Nick, the new part
Go ahead.
is the L, I don't know what else to call it, the bottom of the L that's sticking, the wall that's going sideways, right?
That's, yes.
That's
Yeah,
the new
it's
part,
coming,
okay.
that wall is now coming out as well, right? So it's kind of enclosing them more. So basically,
Makes
if you're
sense,
looking at
yeah.
the picture near the
And
steps,
there's no water there now. Is that water fixture not running, or is it just hasn't been up for the winter?
the fountain doesn't run all year. I know we turn it on during the ceremonies. It usually runs in the spring and summer.
Okay,
But I've
yeah,
seen it, yeah, it's run during ceremonies, certainly. So
there's that.
that's
And
part of it as well. Part of the work as
and
well
this
is kind
picture,
of,
there's no grass on the other side, is there? Am I dreaming this? There's no
no,
grass?
there's not grass. I think
Okay.
that's just,
Okay.
yeah, right.
Yeah, because I thought, what are you doing? Where are you putting this? And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
wait, no, it's
Yeah,
not.
no, the
Okay.
steps were in the same place. It's just oriented, right, right.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's all right. Go
Okay,
ahead.
next thing was, and I thank Justine for bringing this up at the full board. I was so excited I couldn't wait to tell you all about it until this evening, but thanks to our Parks Operations team, they installed a gate on the Liberty Community Garden, so folks will be able to access it during the planting season and access the new and expanded beds that have been placed there. That was enabled by the kind of the takedown of the Rector Street Bridge and the accompanying ramp. So that garden has been expanded and the gate has been added to provide access to the garden for gardeners and the folks who are on the wait list to get their plots, while the facade work on the building next to it continues. So 225 Rector Place is the building that has to complete its facade repairs, and they are kind of working still through their permitting considerations and issues with the Department of Buildings. But in the interim, because we didn't want the folks to lose the gardening season, the authority went ahead and put that gate in there so folks can access the garden at least without being shut out from that.
Yeah, no, which is very much appreciated. So I think now I'm going to interrupt you for one quick second because
Sure.
Paul reminded me that
Yes, 300 Rector.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. That project that just did whatever. I've got her picture.
The curb valve.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, that's
Yes,
not.
yeah, she
But
emailed me too. I actually saw that note. Thank you for that.
so what's going on with that? Any updates? Because she has been
Update.
patiently waiting in the attendee
No, she's
for an answer.
I know she was on.
She's on.
It's great. She's been great. Everyone's been patient. We are, as of today, because I got Helene's note, actually, Helene, thank you. It was very helpful because I sent it to the project team. They sent it to the contractor. The contractor tells us they're waiting for DEP to issue a permit.
Still?
So DOT can issue a permit, so the street can be opened up and fixed. So it is it's going through the New York City permitting process.
Which is what I mean, not fair enough to you that this is not within your control, but that's what you told us last time that Helene asked. And I don't know if it was last month or 2 months ago.
It may have been longer than that. It's been going on for a long time, and it makes me want to
kill them. But yeah.
Well, it's
yeah.
Permits are in place. However, hold on a second. I say that because let me just actually read the actual note. Let me read the actual note because I think there might have been something else in it that I had. Bear with me one second.
No, I appreciate you looking into it because it has been.
No, it's okay. I got it, and it's helpful. You don't think it is, but it is. Send me these things, and I can send it to the project folks, and I can say, hey guys, it's not just me. It's not just me asking because I want to ask. I have plenty of other things to work on, as do we all. I'm asking because people want to be able to understand what's happening here and what the whole.
And it's a way to keep it on everybody's fresh in everybody's mind. So
okay, let's see. We are working on DE. This is from the Expediter. We are working on DE permits. Permit issuance has been delayed if the repair is not an emergency. DEP has been working from home. Hopefully they'll have the DE permits this week and then can apply for DOT permits and start the job by late this week or early next week. So I don't know where that brings us. That brings us maybe
let's
to the
see
middle,
if we
middle
can
of April.
toggle this, Lucian, just to see if we can maybe nudge Nick to nudge them before the next meeting. And maybe, just maybe it'll be finished before the next meeting.
I'll tell you what, Lucian, let me see. I'm going to write this down. I'll see if I can get a either a work order number or a permit number. And then once I have it in hand,
you can pester them.
Maybe you can give a nudge to DEP from your end, and I can do it from
I would
my
love to give a nudge to DEP.
See where we're at. And again, this is not to throw shade to the great city agencies that do work. They have a lot on their plates, but we also want to make sure it's, we're pushing to get it moved.
That's why we're here. We're your partners in this. We exist to help DEP kind of get an idea of the community importance of this permit.
Yep.
And it's been a long time in coming, so,
Very
yeah.
long time.
So it's, yes, we're not, waving our hands for nothing.
No,
But thank you. I appreciate that. And Helene, thank you for bringing it to my attention because sadly, I live on Rector, but not on that side of Rector, and I don't notice it. So remind me, and until it's done, keep reminding me. But thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, going back here, steam through the rest of this. Okay, so resiliency, I have my standard updates here of interest to folks will be, I emailed with Betty quickly yesterday as well, so the revocable consent process for the Battery Park City Ball Field Resiliency Project is nearing completion. That consent is almost complete.
And you
Once we
need
have
that to
that,
get it done, right?
yeah, we need that because they have to basically essentially allow us to do the work on the property that is properly the city's property. Sorry, that was a jumbled way of saying it. They need to give us permission to do the work on their land that they own. It's wending its way again through the city process. Once we have kind of an idea there, though, Justine and Lucian and Tammy, if you're still on, what we wanted to do was, as we committed back in January, was to come back to the community board, kind of with the mobilization plans and some of the follow-ups you were all asking about, like pedestrian access and egress and what the signage looks like,
Yeah,
et
once you get a
cetera.
better idea of what that's going to be.
Right,
that would be
and that may just be something we can quickly just get everyone together on to understand kind of what the impact's going to be. Maybe some of the league leaders as well, because we want to make sure that we're getting it started as quickly as we can and mobilize, but knowing that we want to get back to you with some of the answers you had on signage and access.
And that would be great. Let us know, and then maybe Lucian, we can kind of corral into one. We pick a committee to go to, and then we just all do it in
Yeah,
one.
I mean, I think
Some league leaders will go to education, and you don't have to come to every
right,
meeting.
and it may be, I know Alice usually they want to try to run
Yes.
these things for resiliency. Sometimes however you guys want to manage it. We're certainly happy to give you updates. And then with that, on the 19th, that's 2 Mondays from now, we'll be back in front of the Environmental Protection Committee with the latest updates on the South Battery Park City Resiliency Project. That's highlighted there at the middle of the page.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. You can go through most of page 12, Lucian. You can scroll down. I've linked there a number of the new projects, a number of the new, videos that we have, virtual programming.
Okay.
Programs for seniors and kids. Zumba is back, Tuesday Talks, Children's Arts, etc. A reminder about Poetry Path, which we launched last fall. You remember, it's Poetry Month also. In addition to being anything else, April is also Poetry Month. So that's just a reminder that Poetry Path is in the northern part of the neighborhood. And then last month, at the top of page 13, Lucian, we had noted that it was Women's History Month, and throughout the month of March, we had celebrated many of the women of BPCA who help us do the great job that we do. And some of them are highlighted here, along with links to the Instagram posts that we did describing each of them, their titles, and what they do. So some of you are recognized there. Jenny Dudgeon, who is our design director and works on resiliency projects, and Nydia, of course. And Nancy Buvett in the bottom right, who is taking Teardrop Park to a new level with her love and care and attention to the space that she gives. So that was just a nice recognition to some of the folks who make Battery Park City work so well.
So Nick, I'm going to interrupt
Yes.
you again because I know I stopped Marianne Braverman from talking because she was asking questions about Asphalt Green and
Yes.
talking about the seniors and how the seniors have kind of they've stopped doing programming. Can you reach out to the Asphalt Green?
I have it.
And give a little
I
kick?
have it on my list to check with as a follow-on, to check with Asphalt Green. I'm curious too because like Marianne said, I think the person that she used to work with whom she had a good relationship, I don't think is there any
Not
longer.
there anymore.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious actually to find out whether it's that senior programming has stopped to the exclusion of all other programming, or whether it's programming is stopped and they haven't
It's
started up yet again.
possible.
I'd
Yeah.
like
And
to understand what the particulars are.
I think
But there
Marianne
is a
would
public.
acknowledge because of
Yeah.
COVID, thing may have stopped. But if things are starting to pick up and people are getting
Yeah.
vaccinated, let's find out. Let's start a conversation, is I guess is what I'm saying.
I'd like to find out. I'd like to find out what it is as well. And as she had noted correctly, there is a community space in there that they have to provide X number of hours per week. And in the past we've used that, Lucian, when we used to all to get together in person in the before times. Asphalt Green was one of the spaces that we used on a rotating basis of venues to have these meetings.
It's a wonderful
So,
space.
As
Yeah,
we're
it is.
as we're coming out of this, it makes sense for us to touch base, and I have it on my notes here to check with them. So I'll
Thank
do
you. I
that.
appreciate it, Nick. And then we'll
Of course.
follow up with her too. But yeah, no, no shade being thrown yet
Oh,
because
just find out. Let's
let's
find out.
find out.
Oh,
Exactly.
I should add, by the way, and I'm sorry about this. I didn't want to pipe in when you were all talking about it, but because I was curious enough and because Lucian brought it to my attention, I went down to the Winter Garden as well to check it out because I was also curious. And interestingly enough, I went in and I just kind of asked what the story is, and they said we're essentially open from basically 11 to 7, and all we do is ask you to do take a temperature check and contact tracing, and that's it, no purchase necessary. So I was able to confirm, at least from my own perspective, that it was no purchase necessary. The date I
And
was
that was
there was the
recently, right,
20,
Nick?
that was March, I'll tell you what, it was March 23rd because I was down there for
Oh,
the blood drive,
interesting.
and it was fine.
And they don't know you.
They don't know me. They don't know. They don't know
Okay.
me from Adam. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they did, but I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I got there a little before 11 and the area was just roped off, but that's generally no one was in it. And that's because I think they have hours when they do the contact tracing. But once 11 o'clock hit, they have someone standing there and they just let you right in. And I witnessed people in there both eating and not eating. People were just sitting also. So, as they say, your mileage may vary, but at least when I asked them, they said it was no purchase necessary. All they did was ask you for your temperature and your information to do contact tracing. So maybe it was something that they were just kind of coming out of COVID and opening back up. I don't know. But my
So,
experience, at least for
yeah.
one person,
Well, we
was
can all check and
fairly
see.
straightforward. Yeah,
No, appreciate that. Thank you.
of course. All right, so I'll finish this up now. Public art and BPC, I'm at the top of page 14. We know about that. That's the house that shall not pass for any color than its own. Lucian and Justine and I sought refuge in that after we did our ferry tour last month when it was subarctic temperatures. That's on Belvedere or near Belvedere Plaza. So that's through now extended through spring 2022. So enjoy that when you can. Composting, we have our board meeting schedule. The last thing I would bring your attention to, I think it's the last thing, is the top of page 15. I just wanted to make sure I gave them a shout out as well. And Lucian may make sense also. I'll be pushing it out, but for your newsletter. The 9/11 Memorial and Museum Nationwide One Walk, which was, as we know, canceled last year because of COVID. This year it is all virtual. But it's really easy to do. I included the link there. And all we're asking folks to do is you collectively run or walk 20,000 miles, but they're asking each individual to do just 20,000 steps. It doesn't need to be in one day. You can start walking now and just kind of contribute to this movement. So there's a lot of good information there, and we want to make sure we're getting the word out to the community to get folks to enroll. You can do it obviously anywhere you are in the world and in the country, and to participate in what will be, incredibly enough, almost the 20th anniversary. The First Precinct Community Council, I know Justine and Tammy and I have been attending fairly religiously now. It really is a very good forum to get to know the commanding officer of the First Precinct and some of the folks in community affairs. They've been very engaging, and those meetings happen the last Thursday of every month, with the next one being Thursday, April 29th. The way I always remember it is it's when the community board does its full meeting of the month on that final Tuesday. The First Precinct is that same week, just that Thursday. Tribeca Film Festival we covered. Thank you to them for that presentation. That's at the bottom of page 15. And the top of page 16 will lead me into Pat. So thank you for that. And then the one thing I always ask Pat, because I'm always proud and I'm always curious and happy to get the numbers, is that the ambassadors gave out an additional 90 face masks again this over the course of the past month. So that's more than 500 masks they've given out over the course of the past 4 months or so. So since the end of last year.
That's great. And thank you,
So yeah,
Pat. Next time you go first, Pat, but
that's it. Sorry,
you're at
Pat,
the
and
end.
thank you. Sorry, Justine. Thank you. Thanks for indulging
Thank you
me.
so much, Nick.
I
Appreciate it.
I put a lot of love into this report. I want
There
you
you
to know.
go. Your opus. I love it. All right, Pat,
Okay.
take us home.
So pretty much everybody can see it in Nick's report on the bottom. The graffiti was at 8. The homeless, obviously when the weather gets better, we're going to have more homeless on property. So we interacted with them this time 4 times. Lost and found property, just to let you know, if anybody's leaving their scooters in the ball field, they're dropping them now down in our office after they sit up there for about a week. Okay, park rules, we're at 7. Last year we were at 16. So vendors solicitors, that's at 0. So obviously, we don't have the ticket sellers yet back up down at historic Battery Park that we were dealing with. And the dogs, again, when the weather gets better, the dog walkers are out. So we're still down from last year. It's at 21. Just to give you a little note, just be careful with the homeless people. Again, they're a bit more violent right now as they're coming out. So just to give you a heads up on that.
Why do you think that is, Patrick? Is it new people that are coming in, or because I've never had a problem with the homeless people here before, but I also haven't been out a lot because it's been so cold.
Well, a lot of them that we see that we've interacted with have what I classify as some mental health issues. Not that I know anything about mental health, but just by the way they react. Because as you know, we just ask them they can sit on the bench, and that we just ask them to stay sitting, not to lay down. Plain and simple. You know, and they get aggressive just from that one simple contact. So.
I think I'd be aggressive too, sadly, but I appreciate what you're doing and I understand what you're doing. Don't get me wrong, but yeah.
Well, we had one take a swing at a safety ambassador, so that's why I'm bringing that up.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the information. I appreciate, yeah, it's a hard situation all the way around, so I appreciate that. And, but nothing, it's never escalated. It's been where they just are able to gone so far.
It's just gone as far as that, you know, as the weather gets warmer, like I said, we're going to have an increase with the homeless population. And, you know, today we had to remove one from the ball field who was hanging out in the bathroom. So you're going to have that type of situation. Yeah. So
not a place for a person to be. That makes sense.
Right. So, you know, that's what we're dealing with right now.
Patrick, thank you so much. Anybody have any questions for Nick, for anybody?
I had a Patrick question. I'm wondering if anything's been attempted with the people, the pigeons, particularly around the Oval Park. I was down there about a week and a half ago, actually waiting for someone, and one of several different people I've seen doing it was a middle-aged woman who just kind of walked around along very quickly, took 2 handfuls of birdseed out of a bag and like on in the trees and kept going. I mean, you really had to be looking for her to see it, but still big flocks of pigeons there.
Kathleen,
It's kind of poopy.
Keep it wild. That's what we're saying. Keep it wild. That's why we're doing it. Don't feed the animals, but thank you for letting us know. And
what location again was
what
that?
Happens. Yeah, that'll be helpful.
It's the Oval Park at Liberty Street, on the Liberty Street side where the ramp comes down. So this person was walking through the park and through the birdseed south toward, you know, where the park ends, the wall ends.
Okay, around what time, do you remember?
It was lunchtime. It was probably around 12:31. But I've seen people on the outside of the park on that side do it all. There's just a bunch of trees there where
And they throw it in the trees, right?
Yeah, in the trees and on the lawn under the trees.
Okay, we'll take a look at it. I'll definitely try and have somebody there around
Look at the sidewalk first, you'll know where.
Yeah, really. Look where the pigeons gather and then you'll know. But that makes sense because it actually hurts them, I think, right? At the end of the day, that they need to not do that.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's not them, and then also, you know, dogs can eat it as well, and you know, dogs will eat anything they see, and they shouldn't necessarily. I think it can be very harmful for dogs too if they're eating seeds and things that are not that used to.
Rats, squirrels, which are just rats with big tails.
The bigger issue is just the amount of pigeons congregating on the side of the.
Yeah.
which we
Oh,
never
that
had in
makes, that
2 or 3
makes
years.
sense. And what about the ducks, Nick? They're back or we're not back? I didn't see any ducks yet in the
I haven't
pond.
seen any ducks yet. They usually, it's usually around this time, usually the early to mid-April timeframe, usually when the lawns open up.
Lots of
But
geese, but no
like
ducks.
anything else, though, like we're telling folks, just you know, don't
Don't feed 'em.
the ducks come to Battery Park City because they are comfortable enough that they know that they have food occurring naturally that they can feed on and feed their ducklings with. They don't need to be fed
Right. No,
by
that's
humans.
good. I appreciate it.
So yeah, because like anything else, it's invariably like Kathleen said, then the bread spills or the seed spill, and that's additional folks for our park people have to clean it up. Not that they mind cleaning up the parks, but
No,
they don't
it's
need to
more
be
work
fed to begin
and
with.
it's
Right.
necessary. It's needless work.
Right, and then squirrels, obviously, as we discussed previously,
Yeah, the
is
squirrels are attacking people.
especially
Yes.
especially at a certain age when they're in their adolescence. I can't believe I'm talking about this, but this is a real thing. When they're in adolescence, between 16 and 20 weeks roughly, they're at their most aggressive. And if they are being fed by humans, they come to expect to be fed by humans. So when
So
someone
that's
just goes
why they
into the
were,
park just
yeah.
to, you know, ride the swings or go down the slide, a squirrel is thinking, you fed me last time, I want to eat. Right.
Yeah.
So again, just folks, keep it wild. We gave you
Keep it
posters
wild. I
and a
love it.
video
Yes.
and postcards. Don't feed the animals.
I love
Enjoy
it.
them, but don't feed them.
All right. Well, if nobody has anything else to add or say or question, I thank everybody. This was a long meeting. I'm sorry, but I do think that it was really important to hear from Pam and from BJ. That was like a huge 2 hours worth, more, 2.5 hours worth of answers and questions. And Nick, we really got to do it again, or the next
Yeah,
topic and
we'll
go into
get
more depth.
we'll go on to the next. We have like we said, we're gonna do these particular meetings and have some kind of ability to do some detailed discussions around them. So we'll find a date.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Lucian, I think we're done, and I'm calling an end to the meeting, yeah? All right.